I was clearly training in martial arts. How I became a being with supernatural powers. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76 Habit. Yang Chuan's life has been very comfortable recently. Since his partner Gliu died, the business they had worked on was completely swallowed up by him, and the money he made every day made him smile from ear to ear. That night, Yang Chuan was half drunk and half awake, and walked out of Loyang Tower with a smell of alcohol and rouge on his body. This is a brothel in the outer city of Shan. It's a pity that there is a tigress at home. Otherwise, I must stay overnight today. Kihira is getting more and more beautiful, which makes people feel itchy. Yang Chuan muttered to himself and walked towards home with a weak step. Suddenly, a figure blocked him. Yang Chuan didn't pay attention and bumped into it directly. With a bang, the figure was like a wall, knocking Yang Chuan to the ground and his buttocks were broken. You are so blind. Yang Chuan stood up in shame and scolded loudly, but he soon found that the other party was a head taller than him. The face was not clear in the dark, but those eyes flickered with a faint blue light, chilling people's hearts. Are you Yang Chuan? The man whispered. It's me. I wonder who you are? Yang Chuan asked in confusion. No, I just think you're annoying. I came here specifically to kill you. The man smiled slightly. Yang Chuan's expression changed drastically, and he was about to run away. Puff. A low wind sound suddenly passed by his ears. Yang Chuan froze in place and then fell to the ground. The man didn't even look at him and disappeared into the dark street. One day later, Meng Feng submitted the case report to the patrol department. Qin Yang's contribution value increased by another 150 points. Counting the previous 200 contribution points, the total is now 350 points. When Meng Feng came, he also talked to Qin Yang for a few words. He said that there were some clues about the murderer who imitated the evil spirits and the people in the government office were tracking him. Qin Yang didn't care much. After the two sides chatted for a few more words, Meng Feng hurried back to the government office. Qin Yang continued to practice hard in the courtyard. During the day, he practiced the Hunyo and Yiki cover. The turtle snake key was practiced in the dead of night, which was more in line with the state of the black turtle's quietness. Half a month passed. Qin Yang sat cross-legged in the shade of the tree, carefully feeling the key cover seed condensed in his heart. This key cover seed became more and more condensed, like grey-white glass. After some time, the Hunyo and Yiki cover should be fully completed. Qin Yang seemed to have his eyes closed, but he was actually looking at the system panel. Host, Qin Yang Turtle Snake Art, 6th level, 1820/2000. Hunyo and Yiki cover, Nineth level, 96/2000. Thunder Palm, great success. 165/1500. The turtle snake art is still a long way from perfection. Qin Yang plans to practice the Hunyo and Yiki cover to perfection first and form a new magical power. He is very much looking forward to the magical power formed by this hard Kigen. According to the characteristics of the magical powers condensed by the previous martial arts, the magical powers condensed by the Hunyo and Yiki mask will definitely greatly improve its own defense. At this time, Qin Yang suddenly heard a cry from outside the courtyard. What's wrong? Qin Yang was stunned. The Zunshan division has always been very quiet, and this kind of situation rarely occurs. He went to the source of the cry. In a courtyard, an old woman and her child were crying. In the house, two men were packing things. Their faces did not seem very good. Someone died, and that person came in with you. He unfortunately died when he was dealing with a task of killing evil a few days ago. These are his family members. Come and pack up the things and take them back to make a tomb. Zhang Zhao appeared beside Qin Yang and said lightly, "What a pity." Qin Yang looked calm. After knowing the nature of the Xuxi department, he knew that many people would die. The evil spirits were cruel and tyrannical, weird, and changeable, and their strength was even more unpredictable. Han Qianyu could only give a rough assessment. Not everyone is as perverted as Qin Yang. For ordinary warriors, evil spirits are very difficult to deal with. If you are not careful, you will lose your life. The rewards given by the patrol department are very tempting, and they are all risking their lives. In fact, 2 people died before. But those 2 were alone, so they died. Just build a grave. Zhang Zhao shook his head slightly. Brother Zhang, how many years have you been a demon killer? Qin Yang asked. About 10 years. Zhang Zhao calculated. 10 years. Have you never thought about leaving here? Qin Yang asked strangely. The demon killing department of the patrol department is so dangerous, fighting with evil spirits all day long. Zhang Zhao was surprised that he could stay here for 10 years without leaving. How can it be so easy? Most of the people who join the patrol department are people with no background and no power. If you leave the patrol department, you will have no training resources, and even no martial arts secrets. Zhang Zhao shook his head. The training resources are tightly controlled by ancient sects and aristocratic families. These will never fall into the hands of ordinary warriors like them. The patrol department is their only choice. Besides, the identity of the Sky Patrol is also very useful. Sometimes, the whole clan relies on this identity to survive. Zhang Zhao smiled. Fortunately, I'm a lonely man. Qin Yang also smiled. Then the Sky Patrol is more suitable for you. Although it is dangerous, at least it is fair. You should know that fairness is rare in this world. Zhang Zhao said seriously. This is what he said from the bottom of his heart. If he had a choice, he would naturally not want to stay in a place like the Sky Patrol. But the Sky Patrol is the only relatively fair place. Qin Yang smiled and said, I didn't say that the Sky Patrol is not good. It is dangerous, but I feel that this place is quite suitable for me. As long as it can make him stronger, he likes it. Zhang Zhao said no more. He is not a talkative person. It's just that, when he saw a colleague die, he felt emotional and couldn't help saying a few more words. When the family members of the deceased colleague packed up the remains, the Sky Patrol gradually returned to silence. Even Qin Yang didn't know the name of that colleague until the end. A few days passed. When he went out to eat, he saw a new evil killer moving into the courtyard. This evil killer was very young and looked about 25 years old. In the entire Sky Patrol division, perhaps only Qin Yang was younger than him. Moreover, this man had sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, was quite handsome, and had a very generous personality. Within a few days, he was able to pull 5 or 6 evil killers to the restaurant to drink together. This included Qin Yang. After several interactions, Qin Yang gradually figured out this man's background. His name was Wan Qishan, and he was originally the young master of the Overlord Spear Sect. The Overlord Spear Sect was also a second-rate force in Shan County, with a complete martial arts heritage. Logically speaking, Wan Qishan did not need to enter the Sky Patrol division to take risks. But his father arranged a marriage for Wan Qishan not long ago. This guy was obsessed with martial arts, and did not want to get married. He sneaked down the mountain, and ran to Shan City. After hearing about the existence of the Sky Patrol division, he immediately signed up. Chapter 77 Accident. Patrol Sky Division, Martial Arts Arena. Wan Qishan held a 3-edged armor-piercing gun, his expression solemn. Opposite him stood a man with a deep and indifferent expression and fair skin. It was Qin Yang. Here it comes. Wan Qishan shouted. His figure flashed suddenly, and the gun tip turned into a cold star, shooting directly at Qin Yang's face. This shot was fast, accurate, and ruthless. Qin Yang flashed, dodged the stab, and slapped the gun barrel with a palm. Wan Qishan had been prepared for a long time, and his wrist suddenly bounced up a clever force. The gun barrel bounced fiercely towards Qin Yang. With a bang, Qin Yang was bounced back a few steps. Wan Qishan's eyes condensed, and the armor-piercing gun was like a poisonous snake, stabbing more than a dozen times rapidly. Swish, 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 the cold light flashed, and the air was screaming rapidly. Qin Yang finally pulled out the Lingyu knife behind him. Podjin Forest Force. With the perfection of Podjin swordsmanship, Qin Yang used it, and the sword force was very terrifying. The knife lights were dense and grim, as if one was in a wild forest, full of murderous intent. Clang clang clang, the knife and the gun collided wildly. Wan Qishan was like a giant snake that broke into the forest, knocking down and crushing trees one by one. But the forest was layered, like a cage, that trapped Wan Qishan. No matter how hard he attacked and crushed, it was in vain. If this continued, Wan Qishan knew that he would definitely lose. So he shouted, and the internal energy of his whole body circulated, and the tip of the armor-piercing gun suddenly flashed yellow light. Go straight to Huanglang. Wan Qishan roared, and the armor-piercing gun suddenly burst out with a shocking force, as if it turned into a dragon, breaking through the heavy forest, and stabbing Qin Yang with a gun. Puff. At the moment, when the armor-piercing gun fell on Qin Yang, he rushed out like a gust of wind, dodged the gun, and put the knife on Wan Qishan's neck. How come you react so quickly? Wan Qishan said speechlessly. During the days when he came to the Sky Patrol Division, he was looking for people to exchange martial arts with. He couldn't beat the warriors in the Inner Breath realm, so he only looked for the key gathering warriors. It must be said that as the young master of the Overlord Spear Sect, Wan Qishan was really powerful. He had taken various spiritual medicines to nourish himself since he was a child, and his physique and blood were strong. He was also guided by a famous teacher, and his martial arts were not bad. He basically beat all the key gathering warriors in the evil slaying department of the Sky Patrol Division. Only Qin Yang was the only one he couldn't beat. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't beat him. You've improved from last time. You lasted for 30 moves this time. Qin Yang said lightly. No. It's useless to last more. Besides, I seriously suspect that you're letting me win. Wan Qishan shook his head. I didn't. Work hard and try to last for 50 moves next time. Qin Yang put away the Lingyu sword and left directly. Recently, he has been practicing the Hunyo and Yaku shield and hasn't exercised much. So every time Wan Qishan came to him, he was happy to agree just to exercise his hands and feet. On Qin Yang's way back, a guard stopped him and told him that Han Qianyu was looking for him. Finally there is a mission. Qin Yang's eyes flashed. Han Qianyu looked for him, basically for the mission. Now it has been nearly a month since his last mission to kill evil. The Hunyo and Yaku shield is only 700 experience points away from breaking through. It will take about half a month after this mission, and it will be almost done. Qin Yang calculated in his mind while walking to the Xuxi Hall. Sure enough, Han Qianyu saw him and took out another case file. This mission is farther, to Xuangmu County. Recently, there are people dying strangely in a forest farm there. According to some villagers' descriptions, some white lanterns can often be seen floating in the forest farm. Go over and investigate. Han Qianyu said softly. Okay, how many contribution points this time? Qin Yang asked. 130. 100 is the difficulty of the mission itself, and 30 is the compensation for the time you spend on the journey. Han Qianyu said lightly. That's okay. Qin Yang calculated in his mind that it would take about 7 days to go back and forth to Xuangmu County. It would take about 2 or 3 days to deal with the evil spirit, which would be 10 days. Then go. Come back safely. Han Qianyu said softly. Qin Yang said goodbye and left. After he went back to pack his clothes, he went back to Shan City first, had a meal with Kan He and Xiao Huan, and then headed for Xuangmu County. 8 days later, some young women disappeared in Shan City one after another, causing a lot of uproar. Even during the day, there were fewer young women walking on the street. Either they were forced to make a living or they were protected by guards. This morning, Xiao Huan got up early and made breakfast as usual. After eating with Kan He, she wanted to help in the embroidery shop. Xiao Huan, you should be careful recently. The city is not peaceful now. I heard that there is a sex maniac who keeps robbing young women. Kan He reminded. He was not afraid that Xiao Huan would go to the embroidery shop. The embroidery shop was only 1 street away from the Qin mansion and was opened on the street. There would be no risk. He was just afraid that Xiao Huan would go somewhere else to play when she came back. Don't worry, Uncle Kan. I've heard about this too. I'll come back early today. Xiao Huan said obediently. That's fine. Kan He nodded. He also regarded Xiao Huan as his half-daughter, so naturally he didn't want her to get into trouble. After Xiao Huan cleaned up the dishes, she said goodbye to Kan He and went to the embroidery shop. This embroidery shop is very small. The owner is an ordinary looking middle-aged woman, whom Xiao Huan usually calls Sister Chen. Sister Chen originally had a husband and gave birth to a child 2 years ago. The family was originally happy, but the good times didn't last long. After the child was born, Sister Chen's husband contracted a serious disease and died. Sister Chen had to take care of the child and run an embroidery shop to make a living. Life was difficult. After Xiaohuan knew about Sister Chen's situation, she went to help every day with her kind heart and learned some embroidery skills by the way. Seeing Xiaohuan coming, Sister Chen also smiled. If Xiaohuan hadn't helped these days, this embroidery shop would probably have closed down long ago. The two were busy in the store. In the afternoon, Sister Chen had to go back to take care of the children, so she gave the key to Xiaohuan. Xiaohuan, you should go back early later, or you can close the store now. The city is very chaotic now, Sister Chen reminded. She has also heard some of the recent rumors in the city. Okay, I'll go back later. Xiaohuan nodded. After Sister Chen left, Xiaohuan was left alone to look after the store. In the afternoon, she saw that there were not many people on the street. Thinking of Qin Yang and Sister Chen's instructions, she thought about taking the needle and thread back to embroider. Just as she was packing up and preparing to close the store, a young man suddenly walked in. Sorry, I'm going to close. Come back tomorrow. Xiaohuan was very alert when she saw the man. Generally, only women come to embroidery shops, and few men come. Okay. The man seemed a little disappointed, but still turned around and left. Just when Xiaohuan was about to breathe a sigh of relief, the man suddenly turned around and flicked his finger lightly. Whoosh! A silver needle flew out from his finger. Xiaohuan only felt a slight pain in her shoulder and then lost consciousness. Chapter 78 Anxiety. The afterglow of the setting sun fell into the yard. Qin Yang finished playing chess with a group of old friends and staggered back to the mansion with a teapot in his hand. After coming to Shan County, Qin Yang has lived this kind of leisurely life. He has long lost the opportunity to advance in martial arts. He has practiced for a lifetime, and now Qin Yang doesn't need him. Qin Yang feels that he may really need a break. When he returns to the mansion, he frowns slightly. Usually at this time, Xiaohuan should come back from the embroidery shop and be busy in the kitchen. But now he looked over. There was no smoke rising from the mansion. I don't understand why this girl came back early today and prepared all the meals. Qin Yang opened the door of the mansion, walked closer, and called Xiaohuan a few times, but there was no response. His expression changed slightly, and he quickly searched the rooms in the mansion. No, he went to the kitchen again. There was no sign of fire. This means that Xiaohuan may not have come back. The sunset fell quickly, and it was dark in the blink of an eye. Qin Yang walked out of the mansion with a dark face, holding a lantern, and carrying a big knife. He quickly came to Xiaohuan's embroidery shop. The door of the shop was closed, but when Qin Yang pushed it gently, the door was pushed open. It was not locked at all. Qin Yang walked into the shop and observed for a while, but found no signs of fighting. Everything was normal. Xiaohuan once said that Sister Chen lived in Lanhe Lane. Qin Yang locked the door of the embroidery shop again and went to Lanhe Lane with a lantern. After asking several households, Qin Yang finally found Sister Chen. Sister Chen was taking care of the children. When she heard that Xiaohuan did not go home, she was surprised. I left the embroidery shop at noon and came back to take care of the children. When I left, Xiaohuan was fine. I specially asked her to go back early. Qin Yang frowned. Did you give the key to Xiaohuan? Yes. Sister Chen nodded. It's broken. Qin Yang's face became even gloomier. The wooden door of the embroidery shop was not locked. This means that Xiaohuan may have encountered danger in the embroidery shop and then was taken away, and the wooden door was casually covered. After Qin Yang said goodbye to Sister Chen, he walked quickly to the yamen. Now that Qin Yang is not in Shan City, Qin Yang can only hope to report to the authorities. But before he entered the yamen, he was stopped by the yamen runner on duty. Sir, I have an urgent matter to report to the authorities. Qin Yang is an old man, and he did not get angry about it. He secretly gave a few taels of silver. The yamen took the silver and smiled. Unless the old man is dead, the yamen will not accept cases at night. Come back tomorrow. But my daughter is missing. Can the official point out a way? Qin Yang suppressed his emotions and took out a few more taels of silver. There are too many missing cases these days and no one can be found at present. The Yamen runner said with sympathy. His meaning is very clear. It's useless to report to the authorities now, and you can't find anyone at all. After listening, Qin Yang stopped talking nonsense and left directly. This old man is quite tempered, the Yamen runner muttered. The Yamen runner beside him held out his hand. Hurry up, half of the silver each. Why are you so anxious? Can your share be missed? Nonsense, you embezzled it last time. It's no use reporting to the police. There is only one place to go. Qin Yang found an old friend's house overnight. His old friend had a horse at home. Qin Yang explained the situation, borrowed the horse, left the city overnight, and went straight to the patrol department. Ordinary people may not know where the patrol department is, but Qin Yang naturally told Qin Yang where the patrol department was in Shan City, and asked him to come to the patrol department to find him, if he had any problems. The road was dark at night, and Qin Yang didn't dare to take too many risks. He knew that, if an accident happened, there would really be no one to save Xiaohun. An hour later, Qin Yang finally saw the huge archway of the patrol department. A team of fully armed guards wearing black armor were on duty. The patrol and guarding of the patrol department were all in charge of the military prison department. Seeing this, Qin Yang hurriedly dismounted. The Sky Patrol is a restricted area. No one is allowed to enter. A man wearing black armor and a tiger helmet looked at Qin Yang with a cold voice. The many guards behind him all stared at Qin Yang with grim eyes. There was even a faint sound of bowstrings and noose nearby. Qin Yang was horrified and said with fear, "Sir, I'm Qin Yang. My young master is called Qin Yang, and he is the evil killer of the Sky Patrol." The man with the tiger helmet whispered, "So, you are here to find Qin Yang?" The man with the tiger helmet took out a book, his eyes still cold. "No, I know that the young master went to perform a mission in another place. This time, we came here because something happened at home, and we want to seek help from the Sky Patrol." Qin Yang clasped his fists. The man with the tiger helmet looked at the records in the book. He did find the record of Qin Yang leaving the Sky Patrol. In the Sky Patrol, every entry and exit needs to be registered. "I'm sorry, Qin Yang is not here. I can't pass on. If you have anything to do, you should wait until he comes back to deal with it." The man with the tiger helmet said lightly, "Sir, I really have something urgent to do. Does my young master have any good friends in the Sky Patrol?" Qin Yang said helplessly, "I'm from the military prison department, and Qin Yang is from the demon killing department. How can I know about him? Please go back." The man in the tiger helmet became a little impatient. Qin Yang heard his tone, and knew that, if he didn't leave, he might be in trouble. "Forget it. Even if I have to sacrifice my old bones, I must find Xiaohun back." Qin Yang was planning to go back to Shan City to find Xiaohun. "Qin Yang, old man, who are you?" to Qin Yang. A heroic young man, carrying an armor-piercing gun on his back, just walked into the Sky Patrol. This person was naturally Wang Qishan. He just happened to complete a demon-killing mission from another place, and rushed back in the middle of the night. As a result, he heard the two words Qin Yang at the door and asked casually, "I'm Qin Yang, a guard in the young master's mansion." Qin Yang said hurriedly. Wang Qishan asked, "Why did you come to Qin Yang in the middle of the night?" "I remember he seemed to be out." Qin Yang explained, "There is a reason for this. I really can't solve it, so I can only come to the patrol department to seek help." "Then tell me." Wang Qishan is generous and loyal. Hearing that Qin Yang's family is in trouble, he will naturally not remain indifferent. "Sir, this is it." Qin Yang repeated the news of Xiaohun's disappearance. "Humph, the people in the government are really sitting on their laurels, a bunch of good-for-nothings. Don't worry, old man, I will take the lead in this matter for you," Wang Qishan said in a deep voice. "Thank you, sir." Qin Yang was delighted when he heard this. The people of the patrol department were willing to come forward, which was naturally much better than himself, an old man. "Wang Qishan, this is the government business. If you cross the line, it will easily cause conflicts." The man in the tiger helmet heard Qin Yang's words and said coldly, "Ha ha ha. I just crossed the line. I wonder what the people from the government can do to me. Let's go." Wang Qishan sneered. Chapter 79, Sinking Sand. One day later, a figure followed the crowd and walked into Shan City. This mission was completed more smoothly than expected, and I came back a day earlier. Qin Yang muttered. This mission was not difficult for him. The lanterns floating in the woods near Shuangmu County were indeed caused by evil spirits. He just went there to wait for one night, and the evil spirit came to the door. Qin Yang was not polite, and he hit him with more than a dozen thunder palms, sending the other party to heaven. It was still early today. He thought about going back to the mansion first, having a meal, and then returning to the Sky Patrol. As a result, as soon as he returned home, he heard a voice coming from inside. I'm so angry. If it weren't for Kanbo stopping me, I would have stabbed him directly. This voice was furious. Why did this kid come to my house? Qin Yang muttered and pushed open the door. In the courtyard, Qian He and Wan Qishan heard the sound of the door being pushed and looked back. Qin Yang, master? Qian He was the most excited to see Qin Yang. Qin Yang frowned. Qian He's expression told him that something must have happened. What happened? Qin Yang asked directly. Xiao Huan is in trouble. Yesterday Xiao Huan went to the embroidery shop to help. Qian He knew that time was urgent, so he quickly explained the whole story of Xiao Huan's disappearance. Today I will accompany Kanbo to the government office to report the case. Since I'm a demon killer, these guys have filed a case. But I saw that they didn't take any action, so I quarreled with them directly. Wan Qishan was indignant when talking about what happened today. These guys are simply scum. They spoke in a slick way, and it was obvious that they were just pretending to file a case and would not investigate at all. When Qin Yang heard that Xiao Huan was missing, a cold light appeared in his deep and calm eyes. Kanbo, Wan Qishan, go to the street where Xiao Huan disappeared and ask if anyone saw any strangers or people with strange whereabouts yesterday. I'll go to the government office. Qin Yang said quickly. No matter what, find Xiao Huan first. Then be careful. I'm afraid you will really draw your sword and chop people later. Wan Qishan reminded. He had fought with Qin Yang before and knew that this guy was calm on the surface, but there was a terrifying violence. No, Qin Yang walked towards the yamen without stopping. Wan Qishan and Qian He followed Qin Yang's instructions and went to the street to inquire about the news. Qin Yang knew that even if he went to the county government, the effect would be similar to Wan Qishan's. But he knew that there was another person in the yamen who was still warm-hearted. I'm Qin Yang, the Sky Patrol officer. Find Meng Feng here. I have something to ask him. Qin Yang didn't say a word of nonsense and took out his token directly. He had a deep and cold temperament and a strong physique. Standing in front of the gatekeeper, he felt hairy in his heart. Okay. The yamen runners were all soft and afraid of hard things. Seeing that Qin Yang was not easy to mess with, they didn't dare to say a word of nonsense at all. They turned around and entered the yamen in fear. Soon, Meng Feng, wearing a dark blue police uniform, strode out. He didn't ask Qin Yang what he wanted to see him about, but just nodded slightly. The two came to a tea stall and sat down. My personal maid is missing. I heard that many women have disappeared in the city recently. I want to ask if you have any clues in this regard? Qin Yang said softly. Meng Feng heard that Qin Yang came for this, and his eyes swept around the area and whispered, I heard that this case is in charge of Zhang, and I don't know much. Zhang. Qin Yang's eyes flickered. Those who can become police chiefs in a county city like Shan City are not simple people. In addition to various relationships, at least they need to be internal breath warriors. It's not difficult to solve this case. I don't know why it has been delayed for so many days, and there is no news at all. Meng Feng whispered. Qin Yang was thoughtful. Meng Feng's words were very clear. It was that someone in the government office was secretly covering up. As the person in charge of this case, Zhang Han must have a role. I just don't know if he was the mastermind or took money. I want to know who took my maid away. Do you have a way? Qin Yang said softly. Meng Feng was better than him in this regard. Sirkin, go to Jiamiao Street to find someone. He should know some information. Meng Feng said a few words in Qin Yang's ear. Thank you very much. Qin Yang clasped his fists. I'm incompetent. I can't help you. Meng Feng sighed. The hierarchy in the government office is strict. How could he, a constable, intervene in the case of a constable? Besides, Zhang Han still had a grudge against him for the gambling house incident last time. You helped me a lot. This is not your problem, it's the world's problem. I'll treat you to dinner another day. Qin Yang stood up and went to Jiamiao Street. Jiamiao Street. This is definitely the busiest street in Shan City. The most famous place here is naturally the Shan City God Temple. Every day, people come here to worship the city god in an endless stream, and the incense is strong. There are all kinds of people here. There are all kinds of quacks, monks, Taoist priests, fortune tellers, feng shui masters. There are all kinds of small vendors on the street. Antique jades and all kinds of rare things can be seen. As soon as he walked into this old temple street, Qin Yang smelled a strong smell of incense and candles. The street was filled with smoke and people were constantly flowing. He followed Meng Feng's instructions and came to the city god temple. There were more than a dozen stalls here, either fortune telling or palm reading, or feng shui, and the key business was quite good. Qin Yang took a look and found a stall to sit down. The fortune teller in this stall was a blind man, about 50 years old, with a skinny face, like dry bark, and only whites of his eyes without pupils. Zeduo Bankson? Qin Yang sat down. It seems that a distinguished guest has come. The blind man smiled. I want to inquire about a piece of news. Qin Yang said. Just tell me. Who comes to me without asking for news? Blind Zeduo smiled slightly. Recently, many women in the city have disappeared. Which force is responsible? Qin Yang asked in a low voice. This is a very complicated matter. Can you afford the price? Blind Zeduo asked with a smile. I wonder if this is enough. Qin Yang slapped his Sky Patrol's token on the table. Blind Zeduo touched it with his hand and fell silent. Sir, why do you have to embarrass me? After a long time, Blind Zeduo spoke. Speak. Otherwise I will kill you, and your death will be in vain. Qin Yang said lightly. Blind Zeduo was blind, but his heart was not. He could sense how much evil spirit the man in front of him had. What's more, this man was holding a sign from the Sky Patrol's Evil Punishment Department. Those who can enter the Evil Punishment Department are all ruthless people. If you are not ruthless, how can you dare to deal with those ghosts? Shensha Gang recently, there have been frequent cases of women disappearing. It should be related to them. Blind Zeduo gritted his teeth. Shensha Gang Qin Yang was thoughtful. He put down a silver note, put away the token, turned around and left. Chapter 80 Hunyuan. Shan County City was built by the Bijiang River. It has a huge merchant ship freight system. In order to handle a large amount of goods, the entire county city even built 5 docks. He Qian, the leader of the Chensha Gang, saw this opportunity and used force to control a large number of hard laborers who were responsible for unloading goods and guarding warehouses at the Xianhang Wharf. Under such circumstances, the Chensha Gang was making a fortune and its power was growing. In the outer city, it was also a large gang force, and the leader He Qian was an internal breath warrior. Although Qin Yang had the identity of the Patrol Heaven Division, the Chensha Gang might not give him this face. Internal breath warrior. I don't know if he can break my Hunyo and Yaku shield. Qin Yang's eyes were cold. He brought up the panel. Host, Qin Yang Turtle Snake Art, 7th level, 430 to over 2200. Primordial Key Cover, Nineth level, 1978/2000. Thunder Palm, Great Accomplishment. 165 over 1500. This time, if he wants to rescue Xiao Huan, he may have to fight with the leader of the Shensha Gang. Even if the opponent is a higher realm than himself, Qin Yang has no worries or fears in his heart. As long as he can perfect the primordial key cover and condense his magical power, even if he is defeated by the internal breath master, he has the confidence to escape unscathed with the primordial key cover and the glimpse of light. Qin Yang quickly returned to the vicinity of the mansion, found Wang Qishan and Kan He, and asked them to go to Xianhang Wharf, where the Shensha Gang was located, to inquire about the news. He stayed in the mansion and practiced the primordial key cover madly. The key cover seed continued to spread from the heart to the whole body, and then condensed in the heart. The strong airflow continued to wash the body. In this process, the key cover seed seemed to reach a critical point. With a bang, suddenly it turned into a strong and fierce airflow, sweeping over the whole body. The turtle and snake energy in Qin Yang's body was mobilized, mixed with the airflow, and penetrated from the flesh and blood into the fascia. His skin fascia was undergoing transformation under the impact of this airflow. After a long time, Qin Yang opened his eyes. He looked at the system panel. Hunyuan Yiki cover. Perfection. Hunyuan key. Qin Yang curiously set his eyes on the words Hunyuan Yeti. He wanted to see how strong the magical power condensed by this Hunyuan Yiki cover would be. Hunyuan Ki, the mysterious energy condensed from the human body's primordial energy. Hunyuan Yeti, indestructible. Hunyuan Ki, it seems that this is the special energy formed after the Hunyuan Yiki cover is perfect. It has a stronger defense than the Ki cover seed, and it is running continuously and eternally in my body. It does not need to be activated like the Ki cover seed, as if it is self-contained. Qin Yang slowly comprehended the magical power of Hunyuan Ki. The formation of this key is very wonderful, and it seems to be related to many great secrets of the human body. Not only the key in blood, the turtle and snake key, but also his spirit and spirit. The fusion of all these things formed the Hunyuan key. I wonder how strong this Hunyuan key is. Qin Yang pulled out the Lingai knife, lifted his sleeves, and cut his arm directly. Squeak, the sharp blade seemed to cut a thin layer of tough key shield. This key shield seemed to be entangled with thousands of branches, and it could not be cut. When it fell, Qin Yang even felt a violent rebound force. This is a Hunyuan key. It exists between the fascia, and does not need to be stimulated. When it encounters gravity compression, it will automatically form a rebound force. I wonder if the true key of the inner breath warrior can penetrate my Hunyuan key. Qin Yang stood up. He could feel that the fascia of his whole body was filled with a vitality. This vitality allowed him to protect himself and be indestructible, and it could also nourish the flesh and make it continue to strengthen. This is key. It happened to be sunset at this moment. The sun was about to set. Qin Yang adjusted his agitated blood and ki a little, and after adapting to the state, he walked out of the mansion and headed for Xianhang Wharf. This wharf is one of the 5 wharves in Shan City. It is located in a remote location, but it is still full of merchant ships. Countless dark-skinned thin men are like dense ants, working hard to carry goods. From time to time, some strong men with casual temperament and untidy clothes can be seen sitting on the ground, supervising these hard workers. These are naturally the people of Xianhang Gang. Wan Qishan and Qian He spent half a day at the wharf, but did not find any useful clues. Instead, they roused some vigilance and finally had to withdraw first. Qin Yang happened to rush over at this time, and the 3 of them went to a restaurant and sat down. Qian He ordered a few dishes casually. There must be something wrong with this Shensha gang. I have never seen any gang with such strict guards. As soon as I entered, I was constantly interrogated. I must have something to hide. Wan Qishan whispered. Generally, the gangs in the rivers and lakes are idle organizations. How can this be like this? Even his family's overlord Gun Gate is not as tight as the Shensha gang. Well, you shouldn't be exposed. Qin Yang said softly. That's not the case. I think I left with Qianbo after being noticed by the Shensha gang. Wan Qishan whispered. This Xianhang Wharf is so big, and there are so many warehouses at the wharf. Even if the young master sneaks in tonight, it may be difficult to find where Xiaohuan is hidden. Qian He sighed. Besides, Xiaohuan may not be hidden in Xianhang Wharf. Maybe she has been moved away long ago. Maybe she is not at Xianhang Wharf at all, but somewhere else. They still have too few clues. I know, so I have to find a way to force them out. Qin Yang pondered. What way? Wan Qishan said softly. After knowing that the Shensha gang may be related to the case of trafficking women, the sense of justice in his heart burned fiercely. This is what the rivers and lakes in his mind should be like. Seeing injustice on the road, take revenge. Stir up the grass and alert the snake. Qin Yang smiled slightly. After the 3 of them finished their meal, it was completely dark. There were fire pots placed at Xianhang Wharf, burning with flames. A large number of laborers were still carrying goods. They had been working for a day, and they dared not stop. Otherwise, the people from the Shensha gang would rush over and scold them. They would say something like, if you don't do it, there are plenty of people who can do it. A gloomy and burly figure, carrying a big knife on his back, walked in aggressively. Without any cover, he was blatant and immediately attracted the attention of many Shensha gang thugs. But seeing this man's posture, ordinary thugs didn't dare to provoke him. After a while, a man came over and said coldly, who are you? Bang, the man didn't say a word and slapped him directly. With a snap, the man was slapped away by Qin Yang and coughed out more than a dozen broken teeth. Call your gang leader over, Qin Yang said coldly. His arrogance made the Shensha gang disciples who surrounded him dare not act rashly. Soon, a short-haired muscular man with a scar on his right eye, about 40 years old, walked over. Boss, boss, the minions shouted loudly. Chapter 81 Peer. I'm He Qian, the leader of the Shensha gang. Who are you? He Qian frowned. He had never seen Qin Yang, but the fierce and deep aura on the other side made him a little worried. Zun Xianxi, Qin Yang. Qin Yang took out his token. So you are from Zun Xianxi. He Qian's expression became a little fearful. It is well known that Zun Xianxi was recently established in Shan County. This organization has great power and has recruited a large group of masters. It is rumored that there are also those mysterious spiritual masters in charge. It is not trivial. Moreover, he could not sense Qin Yang's aura, which made him a little cautious. Qin Yang practiced the turtle snake art. Once he entered the state of the black turtle guarding, his aura was restrained, and others could not see his depth at all. I don't know why you suddenly came to Xianhan Wharf. I remember that this wharf should be under the jurisdiction of the government office, not the Zun Xianxi. He Qian was neither humble nor arrogant. My maid disappeared yesterday. I wonder if there have been any suspicious people at your dock recently. Qin Yang said in a deep voice. No. The Xianhan dock is under the control of our Shensha gang. If there are any suspicious people coming in, we will find them at the first time. He Qian said lightly. Qin Yang took a look and said seriously. In short, keep an eye on it. If you can help me find clues, there will be a big reward. After saying that, Qin Yang turned around and left arrogantly. He Qian had a dark face, but he didn't dare to attack Qin Yang. After all, the other party was a member of the patrol department. If he attacked in public, it would be equivalent to slapping the patrol department in the face. At that time, He Qian would definitely die without a burial place. After Qin Yang walked away, he called a smart younger brother and asked him to follow Qin Yang secretly. An hour later, the younger brother returned. Boss, this person is really arrogant. He went to all 5 docks. The younger brother reported. It seems that they can't find anyone, so they try their luck everywhere. Don't worry about him for now, just work hard. He Qian breathed a sigh of relief after listening to his younger brother's report. He waved his hand to let people disperse and walked towards a warehouse deep in the dock. This warehouse has a huge rectangular object wrapped in a huge black cloth. Several strong men are guarding it. A young man with a crew cut sat on a wooden box, holding a dagger and peeling an apple. After He Qian came in, he gave the young man with a crew cut a look. The young man bit the apple and followed He Qian out of the warehouse. Are you crazy? You dare to touch even the people of the patrol department? He Qian growled. I didn't expect that the girl in the embroidery shop would be the personal maid of the patrol department's evil killer. The young man was not afraid of He Qian at all. Then why don't you let her go? What should I do if something is really found out? Do you want me to kill the people of the patrol department? He Qian said coldly. No, that little girl has a special physique. I must hand her over. Don't worry, I will transport her tonight and won't cause you any trouble. The young man shook his head and refused. You can just leave. If Qin Yang finds out anything, I'll be in trouble. He Qian cursed. No, the Sky Patrol doesn't have many connections in Shan County, and they can't find out about you, bossy. Even if they find out something in the end, you can just reveal your identity. Your background is no worse than that of Qin Yang. The young man laughed. I hope so. Get out of here. He Qian said impatiently. Then arrange a boat to come over, and I'll transport the person away. The young man smiled. He Qian saw him like this, and he couldn't vent his anger. Finally, he snorted coldly and arranged for someone to go. He wanted to send this plague god away quickly. If he continued like this, next time it would not be as simple as offending the Sky Patrol to punish the evildoer. Soon, a medium-sized passenger ship quickly docked on the shore. The young man lifted the black cloth covering the rectangular object in the warehouse. It turned out to be a large iron cage, with young women in it who were blindfolded and bound. The strong men in charge of guarding the cage scolded and threatened the women in the cage frightening them to tremble, and then opened the cage and strung the women in the cage together with a long rope. Xiaohun hid in the cage trembling. After she fainted in the attack at the embroidery shop, she woke up and found that her eyes were blindfolded. Her mouth was also blocked, and she couldn't say anything. She could only hear some sobbing sounds and the smell of rouge and powder. Stand up. A rough voice came. Xiaohun didn't dare to disobey. She stood up carefully. The man untied the ropes on her feet and asked her to walk forward. Xiaohun could only do as he was told. Qin Yang hid in a shadow, looking at the warehouse in front. He went to the dock today to pass a message to Qian. You caught a maid of the evil killer, and the other party is constantly tracking her down. In this way, if Qian really had something to hide, he would transfer Xiaohun away as soon as possible. After Qin Yang made a big fuss at the other 4 docks, he used the flying swallow step and rushed back at high speed. The Xianhan dock seemed to be heavily guarded, but after nightfall, the visibility was naturally not as good as during the day. Qin Yang directly used the floating light and glimpse to sneak into the dock easily. Soon, he saw a bright light on the dark river. Even though Qin Yang was an outsider, he knew that it was very dangerous to dock at night. Most ships would wait until dawn, when the light was bright, before letting the ship dock. After Qin Yang found something strange, he immediately approached and lurked over and saw a warehouse. Several big men were leading young women out of it. Xiaohun. I wonder if she is here. He glanced around the dock and observed the situation. His eyes were fixed on a figure standing on the shore. Qin Yang frowned slightly. He was still dozens of meters away from the warehouse. It would take about 2 breaths to burst the floating light and glimpse to get close. Then it would take about 1 breath to save Xiaohun. It would take him 3 breaths of time. The warehouse and the dock are about 100 meters apart. I'll take action immediately when Xiaohun comes out. Qian rushed towards me after he found out. It will take 4 to 5 breaths of time, including the reaction time. You can try. Qin Yang took a deep breath and took out a piece of black cloth to cover his face. He didn't even bring the Lingayu sword this time, just to reduce some burden. He stared at the door of the warehouse. When Xiaohun appeared, whoosh, Qin Yang turned into a black light and rushed out of the shadows. Qian stood on the shore with his arms folded, watching his men bring those women out. Fortunately, nothing happened. After sending them away, they have nothing to do with me. Qian was thinking about this, but he saw a black light coming from a very far distance. Not good. He roared and rushed towards the black light. But the next moment, the black light suddenly turned into a masked man in black. Puff. He suddenly tore the rope strung on Xiaohun's body into pieces, picked up Xiaohun and rushed forward. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 82, Flying on Water. Qin Yang miscalculated. Qian had a nickname in Shan City that he didn't know. He was called Water Flying by outsiders, and his King was also excellent. He used 3 breaths to save Xiaohun. Qian's figure flashed and rushed over, and his right palm was wrapped with a large piece of blowlight, like a surging river. This was the river palm that Qian had practiced for 20 years. A palm strike was like a surging river, which could destroy the opponent in an instant. After Qin Yang realized that he had underestimated Qian's speed, he was not panicked, and the turtle snake energy in his body violently rioted. It was as if a giant beast sleeping in the deep sea awakened, and the cold and deep cold air condensed in his palm, and he blasted out with one palm. Thunder palm. Boom. The 2 palms collided. Qin Yang felt a terrible energy coming from his palm. He hugged Xiaohun and his body was suddenly knocked away. Qin Yang took this opportunity, stepped on his feet, and his figure headed towards the dock. Don't even think about running. Qian's eyes were about to burst. This incident tonight must not be exposed. Besides, he roughly guessed who the other party was. If the other party left alive, the Shensha gang would probably be destroyed soon. He circulated his true energy under his feet and used Qin Gang to chase Qin Yang. Qin Yang was holding Xiaohun, so it was difficult to use the floating light and shadow, so he could only speed up with the flying swallow step. In this way, his speed was obviously slower, and he was gradually approached by Qin. After more than 10 breaths, Qin Yang came to the entrance of the dock. Wan Qishan, take Xiaohuan away. Qin Yang gently slapped Xiaohuan. Xiaohuan's petite body was slapped away by a palm. A figure rushed out from the shadows and caught Xiaohuan. Master, take the knife. Qin He also appeared from the shadows and threw the Lingyu knife to Qin Yang. You guys go. I'll cover you. Qin Yang took the Lingyu knife and roared. Qin Yang, you kid, take it easy, don't die. I still want to beat you. Wan Qishan knew the seriousness of the matter and immediately turned around and ran with Xiaohuan in his arms. Master, be careful. Qin He also knew that staying here would cause trouble for Qin Yang, so he followed Wan Qishan and left. At this time, Qin Yang slowly turned around. Qin landed 3 meters in front of him. It seems that I can't stay in Shan City anymore. Before leaving, I'll send you to hell first. Qin looked at Qin Yang with a grim look. He knew that he could not cover up this matter. There would be no place for him in the entire Shan County city. He only had the way to leave. All this was caused by the man in front of him. Really? Maybe I'll send you to hell. Qin Yang smiled. Clang Lingyu knife was pulled out by him. A key condensation warrior dares to speak so arrogantly. Qin sneered. After a brief fight just now, he knew the true strength of the other party. He was just a key condensation warrior. Really? Qin Yang held the knife with both hands, his eyes focused. Clang, a knife light slashed out like a gust of wind. Pyojun gas force. Interesting. Qin snorted coldly and suddenly turned his body to the side, dodging the gale slash, and hit Qin Yang's chest with a palm. Qin Yang shouted and changed the double-handed knife to a single grip with his right hand, and at the same time, he pulled it hard and slashed the Lingyu knife to Qin's neck. The river is going downhill. Qin reacted quickly, and his left hand suddenly attacked, pressing down hard. Bang! The Lingyu knife was pressed down by his palm. At the same time, Qin Yang urged the surging blood in his body, and the deep and cold turtle snake energy seemed to turn into a big snake, and condensed in his left arm. The muscles in his left arm were wildly knotted and swollen, like a big snake swimming, forming a strong fist force, and hit hard. Ahat subdues the demon. Ahat fist is the boxing method that Qin Yang has been practicing since he crossed over. The essence of the secret has been mastered, and when he punches, he has the rhythm of the Ahat's strength and brightness. But Qin is an internal breath warrior. This internal breath is divided into true ki, gang ki, and true gang. He should be in the true ki realm now, with a body of condensed and abundant true ki, and the destructive power is much greater than that of internal ki. Even if Qin Yang's turtle snake ki is better than ordinary internal ki, it is still inferior to true ki. There was a bang. Qin Yang was forced back several meters by a palm. Qin took several steps back. What a domineering and powerful force. Qin felt his left palm numb. He could suppress the opponent's internal ki with his own true ki, but the opponent's own physical strength and blood were really shocking. Qin, you, the leader of the Shensha gang, seem to be just like this. Qin Yang adjusted his breath slightly and rushed over with the knife like an arrow. The cold knife light spread out instantly, layer by layer in the void, covering Qin. Kill. Qin was enraged, and he used the river palm in succession, rushing down like a rolling river. Bang, bang, bang. The knife light was heavy and the palm shadows were surging like the tide, blasting wildly. Qin Yang's blood was like a rioting snake, bursting with a deep and extremely cold breath, mixed with the cold knife light, making people feel as cold as being in the cold winter. Qin's true energy burst, and he used his flesh palm to fight against the blade, and the river palm opened and closed, sweeping everything. After dozens of moves, even though Qin Yang had a strong physique to support him, he was still inferior to the true energy. Qin found an opportunity and hit him hard on the side of his waist. Go to hell. Qin grinned. As long as this palm can land. Qin Yang's internal organs were all smashed by his palm. Qin Yang's eyes condensed. Without dodging, he drew his knife and stabbed Qin's chest. Naive. Qin was not afraid at all. He only needs to hit the opponent with one palm to directly knock him away, and he won't appear at all. The opponent's life-for-life fighting style is too stupid. When Qin hit Qin Yang's waist and abdomen with one palm, bang, an extremely terrifying and tenacious rebound force shook him fiercely. At the same time, Qin Yang's long knife stabbed Qin's heart fiercely. At the critical moment, the body protecting true ki on Qin's body dissipated most of the power of the Lingyu knife, and it was slightly stagnant. Qin took the opportunity to avoid the heart. Puff. Lingyu knife finally left a bloody hole in Qin's body. The opponent screamed and was about to hit Qin Yang with one palm to force him back. "Are you stupid?" Qin Yang grinned, not caring that the slap was hitting his head. With the protection of Yunyuan Ki, Qin still needs at least a dozen palms to break it. Bang! Qin Yang was hit hard on the head, and the strong impact still made him a little dizzy. But he swung the Lingyu sword and slashed at Qin frantically. To fight against opponents of higher levels, one must be ruthless, risk one's life, and kill the opponent at all costs. His aura was cold and deep, but his momentum was violent like fire. The sword light seemed to burn fiercely, turning into a blazing fire and slashing out. Pojin Feng Huoshi. Bang bang bang. This time, it was Qin who gradually fell into a disadvantage. The protective ki on Qin Yang's body allowed him to fight with him recklessly. But Qin didn't want to fight with Qin Yang, so he could only passively defend. A warrior in the true ki realm was suppressed by a warrior in the gathering ki realm. You can imagine how frustrated he was. Chapter 83 Zhang Han. Not long after, a large group of people from the Shensha gang finally rushed over. They saw that their boss was covered in blood. They didn't know how many times he was chopped by someone. He was covered in blood. Qin's opponent was strong and had a blue airflow wrapped around his body. This airflow vaguely formed a terrifying snake, tightly wrapped around the man's body, protecting his whole body. Qin's palms kept hitting Qin Yang's body and were blocked by the snake's airflow. This is Yunyuan Ki. Qin Yang didn't expect Yunyuan Ki to evolve into this. After all, Yunyuan Ki is a condensation of various vitality, spirit, and spirit of the body, and it is invisible. It may be that the aura of the riot of the snake is too violent, which makes Yunyuan Ki materialize into the appearance of a snake. Bang bang. The two fought fiercely, and these people from the Shensha gang wanted to rush in to besiege Qin Yang. As soon as they approached the vicinity of the two fighting, they were swept away by the violent gale caused by the fight. They couldn't even get close. Who is this man who can force the boss to this extent? I don't know. Then we can only watch. Can you still rush in? More and more disciples of the Shensha gang gathered, and the torches they held were blown wildly by the strong wind, swaying unsteadily. They could only stand here and watch their boss being hacked wildly by Qin Yang. Impossible. How could a ki gathering warrior like you beat me? Swallowing mountains and rivers. Qin roared with a ferocious face. He didn't know how many times Qin Yang had chopped him all over his body, and his whole body was covered with torn knife wounds. If this continued, he would really be hacked to death by Qin Yang. He fought desperately. In an instant, the true energy in Qin's body surged like a river. Under the strong urging, the wounds on his body broke and bled more. He put his hands together and hit Qin Yang's chest fiercely. Bang! The blue true energy spread, and the air became extremely humid. The phantom of the big snake on Qin Yang's body was finally dispersed by Qin's palm, and was knocked several meters away. You can actually break my Yunyuan Ki. It's really a bit unexpected. Qin Yang lowered his head. There was a shallow wet palm print on his chest. Plop. Qin fell to the ground in despair. He used all his strength in this palm, and his true ki was exhausted. He had reached the end of his rope. He didn't expect that he would be killed by a ki gathering warrior. The opponent's gas shield was self-contained and too solid. Even the true ki was extremely difficult to break. Qin Yang grinned, rushed forward, and slashed at Qin with a knife. Swish! A flash of knife light suddenly flashed and slashed heavily on Qin Yang's Lingyu knife. With a clang, Qin Yang felt a shock force coming. He held the Lingyu knife tightly in his right hand, suppressing the shock force. Are you looking for death? Qin Yang looked at the person who appeared in front of Qin with a gloomy look. The man was wearing a police chief's uniform and his skin was as black as charcoal. He was the police chief of the county governor's office, Zhang Han. You committed a crime in the street. As the county magistrate and the chief constable, I naturally have the obligation to take action, Zhang Han said indifferently. Qin Yang pulled off his face scarf and showed his identity token. I'm Qin Yang from the Patrol of the Sky. I suspect this man is related to evil spirits. He did not say that he came for the missing case, because this person should be Zhang Han, the chief constable in charge of the missing case. Once it is said that Qian is related to the missing case, it will be his jurisdiction. So he simply slandered Qian for being related to evil spirits. If he is related to evil spirits, what he does as an evil killer will be justified. Oh, but this chief constable did not see any evil spirits. Zhang Han's eyes turned cold. Really? Am I a professional, or are you a professional? If I say he has it, he has it. If you stop me again, I suspect you are also related to evil spirits. Qin Yang directly put a big hat on Zhang Han. Zhang Han was stunned. Isn't this what he usually says to others? I didn't expect that one day it would fall on him. You can't talk nonsense about killing evil people. Zhang Han's eyes condensed. So, you are planning to protect Qian? Qin Yang sneered. No, this captain is here tonight to arrest him. Qian, now I suspect you are related to the case of the missing girl in the city. Come back to the government office with me. Zhang Han, an old man, naturally would not be fooled by Qin Yang, and said directly to Qian. Okay, Captain Zhang. Qian's face was pale. If Zhang Han came a step later, he would be dead. Qin Yang stared at Zhang Han without saying a word. He knew that it was meaningless to take action. The other party was now justified in arresting the criminal. Even if he went to the government office to complain, it would be useless. Moreover, if they started fighting, he would not be Zhang Han's opponent in his current state. Zhang Han frowned slightly. Qin Yang was not as furious as he imagined. Those eyes were deep and cold, which made him, an old captain, feel chilled. But he had to save Qian today. Zhang Han took Qian away from the dock. Qin Yang followed behind without saying a word. They followed to the gate of the government office. The government office is a key place. Even if you are from the patrol department, you need an official document to come in. Zhang Han stood at the gate of the government office and said coldly. Qin Yang smiled and turned to leave. If you are not strong enough, any harsh words are empty. This guy's not simple. You have to be careful. Qian said while coughing up blood. Think about how to save your life first. Zhang Han sneered. Your appearance means that the people above should not want me to die. Qian can still laugh. If the people above really want to sacrifice the car to save the general, Zhang Han would not appear. You still have to stay in jail for a few days. Then wait until I find a scapegoat. Zhang Han said lightly. It's okay as long as he is not dead. Qian said, spitting out another mouthful of blood. Qin Yang returned to his mansion. Wan Qishan, Qin He, and Zhao Huan had been waiting for a long time. They were relieved to see Qin Yang return safely. Qin Yang, did Qian do anything to you? Wan Qishan asked. I almost killed this bastard, but it was a pity that I was a little short. Qin Yang said with a little regret. Damn, even a warrior in the true Qi realm is not your opponent. Wan Qishan was shocked. Qin Yang looked at Zhao Huan and said with concern. Are you okay? Master, I'm fine. Zhao Huan nodded quickly. Well, that's fine. Qin Yang touched Zhao Huan's head. Although the ending was not perfect, Zhao Huan was finally rescued. Next, Zhao Huan told Qin Yang how she was kidnapped. What did the Shensha gang want to do by kidnapping so many young women? Wan Qishan asked curiously. I don't know if there are more forces involved behind this than just the Shensha gang. Qin Yang thought of Zhang Han's appearance tonight and knew that there must be a black hand behind it. Then let's go directly to the government office to file a complaint. Can the government office pretend to be dead this time? Wan Qishan said. Well, no matter what, let's destroy the Shensha gang first. Qin Yang nodded. Chapter 84 Warning. On the dark and calm river, a fishing boat drifted with the current. A dim fishing lamp hung on the bow, providing some light. Inside the cabin, a crew-haired young man sat upright, looking at the man opposite him with a stiff look. The man was tall but thin, like a bamboo pole, wrapped in a black robe. Fan Liang, you screwed up this time. The bamboo pole black robe said indifferently. Sir, I didn't know that the girl would be related to the people of the Patrol Sky Division. Besides, she has Rayan blood, so I didn't let her go, thinking of taking the risk to transport her back. I didn't expect that the evil killing man would dare to kill into the dock alone. Fan Liang explained with a horrified look. It's useless to say that if you transported the woman back, it would be a great achievement. Now that you have failed, you are a sinner. The bamboo pole black-robe said indifferently. Hearing this, Fan Liang was so frightened that he was at a loss. He kowtowed to the bamboo pole black-robed man. Sir, spare my life. Sir, spare my life. The bamboo pole black-robed man whispered. How many years have you followed me? Sir, 5 years. Fan Liang said hurriedly. 5 years. Don't you know who I am? The bamboo pole black-robed man shook his head. Fan Liang's expression changed, and he suddenly pounced on the bamboo pole black-robed man. A silver dagger appeared in his hand, and stabbed him fiercely. Puff! The black-robed man suddenly stretched out a dry claw, pierced through Fan Liang's body, and pierced his heart. I taught you, don't I know what you are thinking? The black-robed man shook his head slightly. Fan Liang's eyes were wide open, and he died with his eyes open. The bamboo pole black-robed man picked up his body and threw it directly into the water to feed the fish. The next day, Qin Yang and Wang Qishan were about to go to the government office to file a complaint, but they saw that the county government office was very busy. Many Yamen runners lined up into rows to separate the crowd of onlookers. The tall and strong constables escorted the prisoners with pale faces into the Yamen. You have heard that the recent disappearance of women in the city was done by the beasts of the Qin gang. They plan to sell the captured women to brothels in other places. This damn Qin gang, they deserve to die. We can't let these guys go. Drag them all out and behead them. The emotions of the onlookers suddenly became excited. At this time, Zhang Han walked out of the gate of the government office. He was tall and dark-skinned, and he looked upright and majestic. My fellow villagers, our Yamen will definitely give an explanation for the Qin gang case. The prefect said that the interrogation will be accelerated. Please rest assured. Zhang Han said loudly. Good. It has to be Captain Zhang, who is impartial and ruthless. Yes, he is really the iron-handed detective of Arshan County. This time, he solved the case of the Qin gang alone, which is really amazing. The people kept exclaiming in amazement and praise. Qin Yang and Wang Qishan stood in the distance and watched. A guy who looks like a human. Who knows how dirty he is after peeling off the skin? Wang Qishan sneered. On the way here, Qin Yang told him in detail what happened last night. This made him even more disdainful of Zhang Han. He was obviously a guy who was in the same nest with the Qin gang, but he pretended to be so upright. It made him sick. It seems that they want to shut us up. Qin Yang sneered. These guys are so black-hearted. Wang Qishan shook his head slightly. The two did not stay any longer and left directly. Qin Yang thought about it and decided to report the matter to Han Qianyu first. After all, he was also a member of the patrol department. He returned to the patrol department with Wang Qishan. Wang Qishan said goodbye and left first, and Qin Yang went to find Han Qianyu alone. Inside the Zengxi hall, Han Qianyu saw Qin Yang coming in and rarely stood up and walked out of the hall. Qin Yang saw her like this, and his brows frowned slightly. Came to a remote place outside the hall. I already know about your personal maid. The power behind the Qin gang is not trivial. You have to be careful. Han Qianyu said lightly. Not trivial. Bigger than the Zunshan division? Qin Yang asked calmly. For this matter, Deputy Chief Li came to say hello to me. Let you stop. Han Qianyu said softly. Li Qiahe? He can't control me. What does Deputy Chief Lu say? Qin Yang narrowed his eyes. Lu Shengai, whose attitude is the most important. Qin Yang, let's stop here. I can guarantee that your maid will not have a similar situation again. Han Qianyu looked at Qin Yang with a calm tone. I understand. Qin Yang smiled slightly. He stopped pestering and turned to leave. After returning to the room, Qin Yang suddenly took out a piece of paper and wrote down the Qin gang, the government office, and the Xiangxin division. The power behind the Qin gang must be huge enough to affect the government office and the Xiangxin division at the same time. Deputy Chief Lu may have reached some kind of agreement with Deputy Chief Li, so he asked me to stop. There is another possibility. Deputy Chief Lu did not want to provoke the power behind the Qin gang, so he asked me to stop directly. No matter which possibility it is, it can show the terribleness of this power. Qin Yang's eyes were gloomy. If he had not come back a day earlier this time, Xiaohuan might have been transferred away. During these days of traveling through time, he treated Xiaohuan as his sister. This matter naturally could not be let go. The strength is still not enough. Otherwise, I could have just killed Zhang Han and He Qian last night. Qin Yang took a deep breath. He still felt that his strength was a little lacking. At present, with Hunyuan Qi, he could compete with the true Qi warriors. But this was not what he wanted. I have 480 contribution points now. I still need more than 500 contribution points to exchange for the Beiming Blackwater true skill. The turtle snake key is still a long way from perfection. We must hurry up. Qin Yang's eyes condensed. Since the Sky Patrol division is unreliable, everything still depends on himself. The next day, he went to find Han Qianyu again. You just came back, and you want to take the task of killing evil? Han Qianyu was slightly stunned when she heard Qin Yang's intention. You are angry with me, and want to find an evil spirit to beat up. Qin Yang smiled. He knew that Han Qianyu would definitely agree to his request. Sure enough, Han Qianyu glanced at him and took out a case file. This is a town near Shan City. Recently, strange noises have been heard on the streets in the middle of the night. Contribution value, 100. Qin Yang agreed at once. By the way, I want to take my maid over. That should be no problem. Qin Yang made another suggestion. Sure. I'll say hello to the Ministry of Internal Affairs. But your maid can only move around in the residential area of the Xuxi department and cannot go to other areas. Han Qianyu agreed. That's fine. Qin Yang nodded. He was worried about Xiaohuan staying in Shan County City, so he made this condition. After the discussion, Qin Yang set off without stopping. He would first go to Shan County City to take Xiaohuan back to the Zunshan division, and then go to carry out the mission. Han Qianyu looked at Qin Yang's back, a little surprised. Is this guy really so easy to compromise? Chapter 85 Fishing Boat. After Qin Yang left, Han Qianyu also left the demon suppressing hall and came to an attic. Lu Shengai was meditating with his eyes closed. When he saw Han Qianyu coming in, he opened his eyes slightly. What's the matter? Qin Yang came to me today and accepted a mission to kill evil spirits and put forward a condition. Han Qianyu said lightly. What condition? Lu Shengai asked curiously. He wants to take his personal maid to the Sky Patrol division. Han Qianyu replied. Besides that, there are no other conditions? Lu Shengai asked curiously. Yes. No more. Han Qianyu nodded. It seems that he compromised and took the opportunity to go out and hide from the limelight by taking the mission. It was a smart decision. Lu Shengai smiled. Han Qianyu hesitated to speak and finally said, but is this fair to him? Fair? If he was not a member of the Sky Patrol division, he was killed that night. Lu Shengai shook his head. Okay, let's stop here and don't mention it again. 3 days later, Qin Yang came back from a nearby town after completing the mission of exterminating evil spirits. As soon as he entered the city, he saw a large crowd of people surrounding the place where the notice was posted. It turned out that the case of missing persons in Shan County was finally settled, and the government office issued a notice. Qin Yang was tall and strong, so he didn't need to squeeze in at all. He could see what was written on the notice even from outside the crowd. The general meaning was that more than a dozen members of the Shensha gang were dragged to the vegetable market and beheaded in public because of the heinous crime of trafficking women. As for the gang members with minor crimes, they were sent to the army. Qin Yang saw the notice and sneered slightly. He Qian's name disappeared directly from the notice. He was neither beheaded nor sentenced to exile. It seems that the power behind this is really powerful. Even the government office can be bribed. Qin Yang was even more surprised at the powerful power behind the Shensha gang. With such an operation, it is definitely not something that Zhang Han, the head of the police, can handle. It must be that the upper and lower joints have been opened. My strength is not enough now, so I can only lie dormant and not show my claws. Qin Yang stopped reading the notice and turned to leave. In the eyes of many people, he chose to swallow his anger, but no one knew. He was slowly sharpening his claws in the dark. The days that followed returned to peace. Shan County City returned to peace. In addition to practicing the turtle and snake energy in the patrol department, Qin Yang went out to perform tasks to gain contribution points and no longer mentioned the kidnapping of his maid. The dark Bijiang River. A fishing boat floated on the water, looking lonely on the vast river. Qian, don't cause trouble in Shan County City during this period. There will be new tasks assigned to you soon. The bamboo pole black robe man sat in the cabin and said lightly. So let Qin Yang go? If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have failed. Qian gritted his teeth. This is Qin Yang's information. He is not simple. He was just an uneducated young master in Linjiang County. After his father disappeared, he began to show his talent and showed his edge. The bamboo pole black robed man took out a stack of envelopes. It recorded Qin Yang's information from childhood to adulthood. So patient. So deep-minded. Qian frowned slightly after reading it. Well, this person is not only deep-minded, but also has a terrifying talent. He is currently a demon killer in the patrol department. It is not so easy to deal with him. The bamboo pole black robed man nodded. So you still have to do it. Qian grinned. He heard what the other party meant. His personal maid is an extremely rare yin blood. We are determined to get her. But his maid is currently in the patrol department. There are so many masters in the patrol department. We have no way to kidnap her. We can only kill Qin Yang, and his maid will be forced to leave the patrol department. The bamboo pole black robed man talked about the plan. Xiaohun was able to stay in the patrol department because of Qin Yang. If Qin Yang gets into trouble, the Sky Patrol will not keep her. But if we take action against Qin Yang, the Sky Patrol may react. Qian said worriedly. Don't worry, it's just a killer. For the Sky Patrol, killers are consumables, and I don't know how many of them die every year. When the time comes, if we do things cleanly and beautifully, the Sky Patrol will save face, and there will be no trouble. But we have to wait for some time after this matter, otherwise it will be too obvious. The bamboo pole black robe man said lightly. I'm not Qin Yang's opponent alone. Qian said honestly. Don't worry, I will ask someone to help you. Contact me when the time comes. The bamboo pole black robe man looked like he had a pearl in his hand. Then I will wait for your news. Qian stood up and walked out of the fishing boat. He directly performed Qin Yang and quickly went to the shore like a dragonfly skimming the water. In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. Qin Yang was practicing the turtle snake energy in the yard. As the number of layers of turtle snake ki continued to increase, the turtle snake ki gathered in his Danshan ki sea became more and more massive, like a deep mist shrouding the ki sea. As he breathed in and out, wisps of cold and deep airflow enveloped his whole body. The temperature in the courtyard became cold. The turtle snake ki continued to flow rapidly in his body, forming a terrifying pressure, tempering Qin Yang's internal organs, flesh, and blood. Under the continuous flushing, the turtle snake ki seemed to reach a certain limit, suddenly expanded, and turned into an even more terrifying and heavy pressure. The cold airflow shrouding his body seemed to have turned into a turtle snake, shrouding his body. Qin Yang groaned, constantly regulating his internal ki and blood, combing the turtle snake ki, and adapting to his physical condition. Half an hour later, the practice finally ended, and Qin Yang took a sharp breath. The cold mist was instantly sucked into his nasal cavity. He opened his eyes and looked at the system panel. Host, Qin Yang Turtle Snake Art, 9 layers, 0/3000. Primordial Key Cover, Perfection, Primordial Key, Thunder Palm, Great Completion, 265/1500, 3000. It will probably take another month and a half. Qin Yang estimated. This is what he has to do with his crazy practice day and night. But he has only accumulated 900 contribution points, 100 short. First, collect 1000 contribution points to exchange for beaming black water true skill, and then go into seclusion with all my strength to break through to key gathering. Qin Yang stood up. It's time to eat. It's time to eat. Song Lingzi held a porcelain bowl in his hand, constantly knocking with chopsticks, and swaggered into the courtyard. Since Xiaohuan moved to this courtyard, Qin Yang's 3 meals a day were naturally taken care of by Xiaohuan. Once Song Lingzi came to Qin Yang to try out his newly researched puppet illusion, and Qin Yang invited him to have a meal here. Since then, Song Lingzi is the guy who comes here to eat for free whenever he wants. You come here every day to eat for free. The cafeteria of the Zunshan division is closed. Qin Yang said speechlessly. Do people eat the food in the cafeteria? It's the same few dishes all the time. Xiao Huan's cooking is still delicious. Song Lingzi smiled. You can eat for free, but you have to pay for the food. Qin Yang smiled. He would not let Song Lingzi get it for free. What do you want? Song Lingzi's eyes became alert. Chapter 86 Travelers. The magic talisman you had before seemed very good. How about giving me one? Qin Yang said with a smile. Song Lingzi reacted greatly and shouted, that was the magic talisman I worked so hard to make. I don't know how many precious materials I spent to make 5 of them. I just want one. After eating a few meals with you? Qin Yang spread his hands and said, then don't even think about eating with me in the future. Go to the canteen to eat every day. Song Lingzi complained, how can you be so greedy? Qin Yang smiled and said, you have 5 talismans, and I only take 1 talisman. It's not too much. When Song Lingzi hesitated, an alluring fragrance suddenly floated out from the kitchen. Xiao Huan came out with the food and saw Song Lingzi and greeted him. Master Song Lingzi, I cooked braised lion's head today. Do you want to come and eat? Song Lingzi looked at the steaming braised lion's head, his neck stretched, and his mouth was watering. Stop looking, there's none for you. Go back to your Zuanling department. The Xuxi department doesn't welcome you. Qin Yang said impatiently. Damn it, Zuanlingzi was so greedy that he was dying of anxiety. He looked at Qin Yang with red eyes. It's agreed, only 1, no more. As he said that, he took out a yellow talisman and handed it to Qin Yang. Isn't that right? It's just a talisman. Why are you hesitating? Qin Yang put the talisman paper away and asked one more question. How do I use this talisman paper? Drop your blood on it and tear it up when you need it. After Song Lingzi replied to Qin Yang, he ran to find Xiao Huan with the bowl in his hand. Xiao Huan, leave all the braised lion's head to me. Don't leave it to Qin Yang, the big bad guy. Qin Yang couldn't help laughing. I didn't expect that he would get a good thing just by extorting it casually. This is a good thing that can save lives. After eating, Song Lingzi ran away without even wiping his mouth. Qin Yang also went to the Zengxi temple. Now there is only 100 points away from 1000 contribution points, a matter of the Xuxi mission. Finish it quickly so that you can concentrate on practicing. Han Kaianai worked hard in the demon suppression hall as usual. Qin Yang never saw her rest. She was busy every day. Manager Han, do you have any tasks? Qin Yang asked with a smile. There is a task sent to me. Since you are here, I will give it to you. This task should be very simple for you. Han Kaianai, who did not explain anything to Qin Yang, but pointed directly to the case file on the table. Qin Yang opened the case file. It was probably that travelers often disappeared in the suburbs of Wenjiang City recently, and there might be evil spirits causing trouble. 120 contribution points. Do you want to go? Han Kaianai asked. Yes. Qin Yang nodded immediately. Wenjiang City is not far from Shan County City, just 1 day away. Counting the time to deal with the evil spirits and come back, it will not take more than 3 days. He left the Sky Patrol Division with the task file and went to Wenjiang City. At the foot of the Sky Patrol Division mountain, a black feathered crow stood on a branch, watching Qin Yang go down the mountain and head straight to the south. The crow flapped its wings, flew high in the sky, and kept following Qin Yang. Qin Yang didn't notice anything about all this. In a quiet alley in Shan County, a man with a long sword on his back walked in. The man had ordinary features and a pair of dead fish eyes. He gently stopped in front of a house and knocked on the door. Creaky Qian pushed open the wooden door. Seeing the dead fish eyes, he was slightly stunned and pushed the wooden door open a little to let the other party in. I didn't expect it to be you. Qian was a little surprised. If you weren't so useless that you couldn't even deal with a key condensation warrior, I wouldn't have come. The dead fish eyes sneered. Qian was very afraid of the dead fish eyes, and he didn't get angry at all, even if the other party made sarcastic remarks. He said seriously, if you face Qin Yang with this mentality, you will definitely suffer a great loss. Okay. According to the news from the crow, Qin Yang left the patrol department today and should be going to a certain place to carry out the mission of exterminating evil. The higher-ups think the time is right and they can take action against him. Dead fish eyes whispered. Then how do you want to act? Qian frowned. Don't worry about it. I'm responsible for everything this time. Just listen to me. Dead Fish Eyes said lightly. Qin stopped talking. After the Shen gang's affairs were ruined, he was a guilty person and had no say at all. If this operation failed, I'm afraid his end would not be too good. So even if Qin hated Dead Fish Eyes in his heart, he didn't refute. After the two finished talking, they quickly left the mansion. Gloomy night. Outside Wenjiang City, the long official road was pitch black, and there were a few wolf howls from time to time. Two travelers carrying backpacks held torches and headed towards Wenjiang City. The two of them were brothers, named Yanshan and Yandi. This time, they left their hometown and went to Wenjiang City to live with their relatives, hoping to earn more money to support their family. Boss, why haven't we reached Wenjiang City yet? Yandi frowned. Before dark, they met a kind passerby who showed them the way and said that Wenjiang City was about 10 miles away. But after walking all the way, he felt that the distance should be more than 10 miles, but there was no outline of Wenjiang City. Did we take the wrong road? That's not right. There is only one official road and there are no forks. There is no reason to take the wrong road. Yanshan was also puzzled. No. Boss, let's find a place to rest first. Wait until tomorrow. After walking all night, Yandi's straw sandals were worn out, his feet were full of blisters, and his stomach was rumbling. He had no strength at all. Yanshan was the same. Boss, there seems to be a family ahead. Why don't you ask if you can stay for a night? Yandi saw a yard surrounded by a mud wall on the side of the road, and there seemed to be several houses inside. Well, go ask. Yanshan nodded. The courtyard was dark, with no light, and no human voice. But it was normal at this time. The people in the house were probably asleep a long time ago. Yanshan knocked on the door gently. His fingers fell on the courtyard door. Creak. The courtyard door made a creaking sound, and was pushed open directly. Boss, why did you push it open directly? Yandi was surprised. This courtyard door is not locked at all, Yanshan retorted. Let's go in and take a look. This place may have been uninhabited for a long time, Yandi said softly. Entering the courtyard, several houses were pitch black. The two chose the largest house. Yanshan knocked on the door gently. As a result, the door opened again. Yandi held a torch and looked at the room. The table and bed were covered with dust and cobwebs, and it looked like no one had lived there for a long time. Haha. It seems that the owner of this house has not lived here for a long time. Just let me rest here for a night. Yandi smiled. Well, clean up the dust, and it should be ready for living. Yanshan nodded. The two brothers cleaned up casually, and then they fell asleep in a short while due to fatigue. Chapter 87 Midnight. After midnight, Yanshan and Yandi were sleeping when they heard a knock on the door. Bang, bang, bang. The noise was quite loud, as if the person knocking on the door was very excited. Why is there someone coming here in the middle of the night? Yandi opened his eyes in confusion. Maybe he is the same as us, who wants to stay overnight. Yanshan whispered. It's so late, he may not be a good person. Yandi said vigilantly. Bang, bang, bang. Just when the two brothers were discussing, the knock on the door became extremely violent. It seemed to smash the wooden door. Who is it? Yanshan roared. He also gave Yandi a look. The two brothers were walking in the wild, so they naturally brought some self-defense tools. Yandi understood, took out two knives from the package, and handed one to the eldest brother Yanshan. Bang, bang, bang. The wooden door was still being knocked hard. The two of them walked towards the door with knives. Yanshan gritted his teeth and pushed the wooden door open. A cold wind rushed in. There was nothing outside the courtyard. The two brothers were stunned. Where are the people? Why is there no one running so fast? Yanshan was in doubt. Impossible. Can that person fly? Yandi muttered. The two brothers looked at each other and saw the fear in each other's eyes. Close the door first. If there is any movement later, we will not care. Yanshan gritted his teeth and said. The two brothers closed the door again and turned around. His face turned pale quickly. At some point, a corpse was hanging from the beam of the house. The corpse seemed to have died not long ago, and the whole body was stinking. Some maggots could be seen. From the face, it seemed to be an old man, wearing white clothes, with his eyes closed. Welcome to my home. The old man suddenly opened his eyes and smiled. The two brothers Yanshan and Yandy were so scared that they wanted to rush out of the house. But the wooden door that they had just locked could not be opened at this moment. Bang, 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 damn it. Yanshan roared in despair. He could even smell the stench. But he didn't dare to look back, just wanted to open the door quickly. The rotten old corpse fell from the beam to the ground and rushed towards Yanshan and his brother. Bang, at this moment, a violent force suddenly came from outside the door, smashing the wooden door into pieces. I told you not to open the door. You have to blast it open. Qin Yang strode in angrily, clenched his big fists, and swung them violently. Bang! The rotten old corpse was smashed by his punch and flew upside down on the wall. Then under the horrified eyes of Yanshan and Yandy, the figure was like a demon slaying Arhat, grabbing the rotten old corpse and smashing it violently. The two fists were wrapped in a deep and cold breath and fell as heavy as a mountain. The whole house was shaking violently. Tables, beds, stools were all smashed and shattered. After being beaten more than 10 times, the rotten old corpse was covered in blood and flesh, and both eyeballs were popped out. The body was broken like a doll that had been ravaged by naughty children for hours. Finally, Qin Yang used Luohan Jiang Mo to blast the rotten old corpse's head. The horrible movement stopped slightly. Remember, if someone knocks on the door in the middle of the night in the future, remember to open it. Qin Yang looked at Yanshan and Yandy. Thank you, hero. Thank you, hero. Yanshan and Yandy were in awe of Qin Yang like a god, and they were about to kowtow and kneel down. Qin Yang was about to stop him. Suddenly, he heard two subtle and sharp sounds. Puff. Yanshan and Yandy fell forward suddenly. There was a dart stuck in the back of their heads. Qin Yang's expression changed slightly, and he walked out of the house. Then he saw a big man with broad palms and long legs, looking at him with a grim look. Qian, it seems that you really missed me. Qin Yang saw this man. 3 parts of surprise, 3 parts of smile, plus 4 parts of excitement. Qin Yang, my hard work for more than 20 years. You destroyed it overnight. Do you think I miss you? Qian sneered. The Shensha gang was his life's work. Now it was destroyed by Qin Yang, and he almost died. His hatred for Qin Yang was really from the bottom of his heart. If you miss me, you should come earlier. Why do you have to be a turtle in the city? Qin Yang smiled. Tonight, you must die. Qian's voice was cold and vicious. Followed me all the way from Shan County City. It seems that you really want to beat me to death, and then put the blame on the evil spirit. Qin Yang smiled. Qian seemed unable to suppress the hatred in his heart. He roared, rushed forward, and his palms surged like a mighty river to hit Qin Yang. Qin Yang had experienced Qian's river palm at the dock last time. This time, he did not choose to draw his sword. The turtle and snake energy in his body violently rioted, turning into a dark blue airflow that wrapped around his body. The temperature in the courtyard was dropping. He faced Qian, and the muscles in his right arm bulged like a steel noose. He raised his elbow domineeringly and hit the Luohan bell. Boom. At the moment of fist and elbow collision, a violent airwave raged, blowing dust everywhere. How could it be? Your strength has increased by another 3 points. Qian was knocked back more than 10 steps by Qin Yang's elbow, and his face was surprised. There was a deep red blood mark on the palm of his right hand. It was caused by Qin Yang's iron elbow. I don't like trash like you. I haven't seen you for a month, and it's useless to make any progress. Qin Yang grinned, and his figure rushed like lightning, and the swift palm power instantly condensed in his palm and hit out. Thunder palm. Qian's face was vicious, and the true energy and the Danshan Qi in his body burst out to the extreme, condensed in his palms, and hit out in succession. He didn't believe it. A Qi condensation warrior could collide with his condensed true energy. Qin Yang seemed to have guessed Qian's thoughts, laughing, and his blood burst out, mixed with the turtle and snake energy, and directly confronted the opponent. Bang bang bang. It was like the roar of thunder and stone colliding. The two figures clashed their palms crazily. One was as domineering and turbulent as thunder. The other was as majestic as a river. Everything in the courtyard was smashed. The walls were smashed, and the houses collapsed. When he fought with Qian before, Qin Yang was still at the 7th level of turtle and snake energy. Now he is at the 9th level, close to perfection. Every time the turtle snake ki rises, the pressure it creates will temper the whole body, making the ki, blood and body stronger. Moreover, with the blessing of fleeting light and shadow, the explosive power is even stronger. For a while, he and Qian were evenly matched. Qian fell into the same dilemma again. He couldn't be as ruthless as Qin Yang. The opponent was simply fighting fiercely with his life for his life. But he couldn't. Although he had body protecting ki. But Qian admitted in his heart that Qin Yang's hard Kigen was far more terrifying than his own body protecting ki. Qin Yang fought more and more fiercely. Qian was really a very good opponent. He made him excited, his blood boiled, and he fought heartily. Chapter 88 Illusion. In the dark courtyard outside the official road, there were constant loud roars. Boom. The wall exploded. Two figures rushed out with violent wind and waves. Qian, you are really too weak. Qin Yang laughed wildly. Then the next moment, his expression suddenly became calm. It was as if he had turned from a turbulent sea into a calm surface. But this change made Qian feel creepy and his hair stood on end. This silent and calm repressive terror was even more terrifying than the turbulent sea. Qin Yang entered a state of deep concentration and meditation at this moment. The many mysteries of the thunder palm emerged one by one. These mysteries flashed through his mind like lightning, and then formed a terrifying move. Thunder mystery chain lightning. Qin Yang's eyes seemed to be stimulated by lightning, and his hands suddenly struck out with extremely rapid energy. Bang bang bang. For a moment, Qian seemed to see dozens of lightning bolts violently attacking him. These lightnings spread and intertwined, and the disorder made it impossible for him to make a move to dissolve them. Damn it. The energy swallowing mountains and seas. Qian's face was distorted and he roared, and the true energy in his body surged like a river and quickly gathered in his palms. The explosion was too strong, and even his meridians began to collapse. But Qian didn't care, and he urged the true energy more frantically, and the blood in his body burst and exploded, and the meridians were like tree roots. The infinite energy seemed to be condensed on Qian's palms and hit. Bang bang bang. Lightning roared, and the sound of the surging river continued to sound. The official road was constantly hit by holes, and the gravel flew up. In this crazy fight, Qian felt that his condensed true energy was constantly shattered by the violent lightning. A stream of cold breath came, which made his movement stagnate for a while, and then he was completely at a disadvantage. The rapid lightning seemed to split and tear the river. Qian kept parrying with both hands, and his arm bones seemed to be broken. Swoosh. A fierce and sinister sword light appeared quietly, like a poisonous sting, and went straight to Qin Yang's back. Finally appeared. Qin Yang roared wildly, and suddenly pulled out the Lingyu sword behind him, turned around and slashed, breaking the army falling mountain. The Lingyu sword pressed down like an ancient mountain. The airflow was squeezed to the sides. With a clang, the sword light was smashed by the Lingyu sword, and was swung more than 10 meters away. What a strong force. No wonder you can beat Qian. The dead fish-eyed man held a blue-black long sword, and looked at Qin Yang coldly. Don't talk nonsense with him. Kill him. Qian roared, enduring the severe pain in his muscles and bones, and rushed towards Qin Yang. The dead fish-eyed man was stunned, stepped on the ground, swung the long sword, and turned into a messy thread, to stab out. Qin Yang frowned slightly, swung the Lingyu sword, to cut out layers of strict sword light, protecting his body. Bang, bang, bang. Under the siege of the Taki warriors, Qin Yang was suppressed and felt uncomfortable. The Hunyuan Qi turned into a dark blue snake that covered his whole body, and kept resisting the attacks. The swordsmanship of the dead fish-eyed man was very strange, like weaving a big net, layer upon layer. The sword light also contained penetrating power, which made Qin Yang very afraid. Qian was even more crazy about hitting the river palm on the side. The palm power was surging. The two Qi warriors attacked, making it difficult for Qin Yang to compete. With the protection of the Hunyuan Qi, he could hold on. But as it is constantly consumed, the Hunyuan Qi will be consumed sooner or later. It can't be wasted here any longer. Qin Yang's eyes flashed coldly, and the turtle snake Qi in his body burst out rapidly. His right arm suddenly grew larger, and he suddenly grasped the Lingyu knife, turning into a fierce fire and slashing out. His target was Qian. This knife was very sudden. No one expected it. because the dead fish-eyed man was swinging his sword and fiercely stabbing Qin Yang's chest from behind. Qin Yang completely ignored him. The dead fish-eyed man would naturally not miss this opportunity. He growled and condensed his sword energy into a black light and shot it out. Puff! The Han Yuan key flashed with a faint blue light and fiercely blocked the blue-black sword light. Break it for me. The dead fish-eyed man growled, and the blue-black internal energy flashed brightly, and finally pierced through the Han Yuan key, and stabbed into his back. At the same time, Qin Yang showed no pain at all, and slashed He Qian with a knife. He Qian's body protecting true energy was torn apart, and he was slashed away by Qin Yang's knife. Swish! The moment He Qian was slashed away, Qin Yang's figure flashed, and he performed a floating light and shadow, flashing forward. Want to run? The dead fish-eyed man growled, and hurriedly caught up. He Qian's chest was slashed with a terrible wound. Seeing Qin Yang trying to run, he also roared, not caring about the wound bursting, and chased after him fiercely. But they found that Qin Yang's lightness skill was a bit scary. With his own lightness skill, He Qian's reputation of flying on water was not exaggerated. His figure was like the wind, faster than dead fish eyes. He wanted to catch up with Qin Yang, entangle him, and then wait for dead fish eyes to catch up. Whenever He Qian approached, Qin Yang would turn into a residual shadow, and fly out again, pulling away. The three figures chased each other frantically in the wilderness, chasing each other. He wants to run back to the Sky Patrol. He Qian quickly realized the other party's intention, and shouted loudly to dead fish eyes behind him. It is a day's journey from here to the Sky Patrol. But at this speed, they can arrive within 3 hours. Once Qin Yang escapes to the vicinity of the Sky Patrol, they will no longer be able to kill him. Chase! Dead fish eyes roared. Qin Yang felt the two murderous intentions coming from behind. His eyes were calm. The airflow in his body was constantly flowing and recovering. This was the magical power formed by Kanglang moving blood art. During the long distance attack, his strength was close to infinite, and he could continuously burst out fleeting light and shadows. Otherwise, with such a high intensity burst, his blood and ki would have been exhausted long ago. After 2.5 hours, He Qian still hadn't caught up with Qin Yang, and he became more and more anxious. At this time, Qin Yang suddenly rushed into a forest in front. He Qian immediately understood that Qin Yang wanted to use the complex terrain to get rid of them, so he naturally chased him in. Entering the dark forest, he quickly caught Qin Yang's figure and used Qin Gang to catch up. Dead fish eyes followed He Qian closely. Qin Yang seemed to realize that he couldn't get rid of He Qian's pursuit and went to the Sky Patrol again. His figure became more light and agile. After an incense stick, the sky was slightly bright. Qin Yang was getting closer and closer to the mountain where the Sky Patrol was located. He Qian and the man with dead fish eyes showed strange smiles. A black crow suddenly flew down from the sky. The crow's body quickly grew larger, becoming almost the size of a helicopter. Its claws glowed coldly, and it grabbed Qin Yang fiercely. The airflow seemed to be crushed by this claw. Qin Yang had never expected that he would be attacked near the Sky Patrol. Puff! His whole body was torn to pieces by the claws of the huge crow. Then, it turned into a grey gas and drifted away. What's going on? He Qian was stunned. This Qin Yang is not a flesh and blood body. Even the man with dead fish eyes frowned. After the black crow landed, it actually made a human voice. This is an illusion. We have all been deceived by him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 89 Confession. Illusion? He Qian was stunned. The huge black crow transformed into a tall, thin and feminine man, with black feather patterns on both cheeks. It seems that this man is a little smart, and may have guessed that there is a backup near the patrol department. The tall and thin man said lightly. Where should the real Qin Yang be now? Dead fish eyes asked lightly. I don't know, that you have been chasing him all the time. Didn't you find that this is an illusion stand-in? The tall and thin man asked. Impossible, he has never left our sight. Dead fish eyes frowned. No, Qin Yang once hid in a forest in that forest. He Qian said. Could it be that Qin Yang used a stand-in that forest? Dead Fish Eyes recalled. At that time, after Qin Yang rushed into the forest, he did disappear from their sight for a very short time. Who would have thought that a warrior would have such a means as an illusion stand-in? That should be it. This person should have fled to other places now. Retreat first, the tall and thin man said in a deep voice. After all, this place is very close to the Sky Patrol. Staying too long may cause trouble. Damn it. Qin Yang gritted his teeth. If he didn't kill Qin Yang this time, he would be in big trouble. The dead fish-eyed man's face was also extremely ugly. He had made a solemn promise before setting off, but he didn't expect to mess up in the end. The tall and thin man ignored the two people. His body turned into a black crow and flew away directly. Qin Yang and the dead fish-eyed man left without saying a word. This operation was completely messed up. Shan County City. A figure covered in blood rushed into the county magistrate's mansion. Who dares to break into the county magistrate's mansion? A wisp of powerful aura suddenly locked onto Qin Yang. I'm Qin Yang. The Sky Patrol punishes evil people. Qin Yang suddenly took out his token and growled. Qin Yang, what's wrong with you? A figure suddenly rushed out from the depths of the county magistrate's mansion. It was Zhang Zhao. Today, he was in charge of recruiting new people to join the Sky Patrol department at the county magistrate's mansion. When he heard Qin Yang's voice, he rushed out. Someone tricked me, Qin Yang whispered. Zhang Zhao saw the sword wound on Qin Yang's shoulder and frowned. This is not the place to talk. I'll escort you back to the Sky Patrol department first, Zhang Zhao whispered. He quickly arranged the affairs, and after simply bandaging Qin Yang's wound, he escorted Qin Yang to the Sky Patrol department. Han Qianyu heard that Qin Yang was in trouble and rushed over quickly. Zhang Zhao said goodbye and left first. Qin Yang and Han Qianyu were the only ones left in the room. Who did it? Han Qianyu frowned. Qian and another master with a sword. After I completed my mission, they suddenly attacked me. These two are true key warriors, I'm no match for them, so I went all the way back to the Sky Patrol department. Qin Yang sat on the bed with his shoulder bandaged tightly. Then why did you go to the county magistrate's mansion? Han Qianyu was a little confused. I felt something was wrong halfway. Because the other party knew my whereabouts, there should be someone from them near the patrol department. I didn't dare to take the risk at the time, so I used a sleight of hand to deceive them and ran to the county magistrate's mansion. Qin Yang moved his injured shoulder. The sword only pierced his flesh and blood without hurting his bones. It should heal in a few days. Manager Han, it seems that your face is useless. They didn't attack my maid. This time they attacked me directly. Qin Yang grinned. The nature of this time is completely different from the time with Xiaohuan. After all, Xiaohuan is just Qin Yang's personal maid, not someone from the patrol department. But this time, the other party attacked Qin Yang directly. Moreover, they attacked Qin Yang when he was on a mission. If they don't give an explanation this time, the morale of many evil killing people will naturally be greatly hit. After hearing this, Han Qianyu's face was also covered with frost. These people seemed to have no regard for the patrol department at all, and they dared to reach out to the vicinity. If Qin Yang had not been more alert, he might have been ambushed and killed near the Sky Patrol Division. By then, the Sky Patrol Division would have become a joke. I will report this to Deputy Director Liu, and I will definitely give you an explanation, Han Qianyu said solemnly. Then I definitely believe Director Han. I have completed that evil task, and I must contribute. Qin Yang smiled. Okay, you should recover first. This is the Jade Ointment, which has a miraculous effect on blade injuries. Han Qianyu put down a bottle of ointment and said goodbye. It seems that you are really angry. Qin Yang looked at Han Qianyu's back, and his face became gloomy. If he hadn't extorted an illusion talisman from Song Lingzi yesterday, this time it would have been a little dangerous. Just wait for me. Qin Yang's eyes were deep. He never expected the Sky Patrol Division to avenge him. As a human being, you can only rely on yourself. Yang, fishing boat. You two really disappoint me. You didn't even kill a key condensation warrior. Inside the cabin, the bamboo pole man looked at the dead fish eyes and Qian opposite and couldn't hide his murderous intent. My lord, Qin Yang is really powerful. Even my Xian Luo swordsmanship can't break his hard kicken. The dead fish eyes whispered. Qian didn't say anything. He had been defeated by Qin Yang twice. No matter what reason he gave, it was pale. Qin should have reminded you. The bamboo pole man sneered. The dead fish eyes didn't dare to speak. He knew the bamboo pole man's temper too well. If he spoke again, the other party would be unable to hold back. Now that this matter is over, the Patrol Sky Division will be furious. You say, should I hand you over? The bamboo pole man said lightly. The two trembled, but didn't say anything. The atmosphere in the cabin became inexplicably cold. For a long time, the bamboo pole man waved his hand impatiently and said, "Two pieces of trash, get out." Qin and the dead fish eyes man heard this and hurried out of the cabin. The bamboo pole man also came out and then picked up the bamboo pole. Two snaps. Qin and dead fish eyes screamed as they were hit on the back by a pole. The pole contained a sinister force that split the two of them and caused them to fall into the water. The bamboo pole man didn't even look at them. He rowed the fishing boat back to the shore alone with the pole. He quickly shuttled through the city of Shan County and finally came to a luxurious mansion. The bamboo pole man did not enter from the front door, but from the back door. After he entered the mansion, he came to a study. A middle-aged man with tied hair was writing with a brush. The man had a mature face, wore a blue shirt, and had a refined style. This matter is not easy to solve. The middle-aged man said lightly without raising his head. It's my subordinates who are not doing a good job. The bamboo pole man apologized. Forget it, it's useless to say these. I didn't think that two true key warriors could not defeat a key gathering warrior. The middle-aged man shook his head. Then the patrol department will investigate. The bamboo pole man frowned. It's okay. Lu Shanghai, who is now recruiting people everywhere, wanting to take the position of the head of the company. We just need to give him some promises. The middle-aged man disagreed. Chapter 90 First Class Boxing. The third day after Qin Yang was attacked. Sky Patrol Division. Han Qianyu was talking to Lu Shengaiyu. Qianyu, they sent me a reply. Take a look. Lu Shengaiyu took out an envelope. Han Qianyu opened it and frowned slightly. What a tempting offer. Lu Shengaiyu smiled and said, then what do you think I should choose? The other party has to promise to help me become the head of the division. With their influence in Shan County, it will really help me a lot. Han Qianyu looked up at Lu Shengaiyu, second time as deputy head. There was inevitably disappointment in her tone. I know Qin Yang was wronged, but he is not dead now. The other party also promised to hand over a few people. I think this matter will be left at that. Lu Shengaiyu smiled. Then go and tell him yourself. I can't do it. Han Qianyu refused directly. She stood up and didn't even give face to Lu Shengaiyu, the deputy head of the division. She left without saying hello. Lu Shengaiyu had a blank expression on his face. He stood up and walked towards the courtyard where Qin Yang was. Whoosh whoosh. Before he entered, he heard a fierce and domineering fist wind coming out. The fist wind was so violent that it even sounded like a bellows. Indistinctly, he could even hear the sound of surging. That was a sign of vigorous blood and ki. It meant that the other party was stimulating blood and ki, like a surging river. Lu Shengaiyu walked into the courtyard. He saw a strong figure practicing boxing, and every move was full of fierce charm. Good boxing. Lu Shengaiyu exclaimed. Hearing this, Qin Yang stopped. Hello, Deputy Chief Lu. Qin Yang clasped his hands together. How many years have you practiced this Luohan fist? Lu Shengaiyu asked curiously. This Luohan fist is a common boxing in the martial arts world, and people with more experience can recognize it at a glance. 10 years. Qin Yang did not hesitate at all. No wonder. I see your boxing has the charm of Luohan. This boxing in your hands is probably equivalent to the power of a second-rate boxing. Lu Shengaiyu nodded. Deputy Chief Lu, you are too kind. Qin Yang said softly. Speaking of Luohan fist, I have a copy of Dragon Elephant Fist here, which is from the same school as Luohan fist. Unfortunately, this boxing book is incompatible with the martial arts I practice, so I have never practiced it. Now it seems that this boxing book will finally find a suitable person. Lu Shengaiyu changed the subject, and his words actually meant to give Qin Yang a boxing book. Deputy Chief Lu, such a great gift. How can I afford it? Qin Yang shook his head softly. Why, I gave you a boxing manual, but you don't want it. Lu Shengaiyu narrowed his eyes. Qin Yang's expression changed slightly. Both sides fell into silence. The atmosphere in the yard became weird. After a long time, Qin Yang sighed slightly and said, "How dare I refuse the kindness of Deputy Chief Lu?" Lu Shengaiyu laughed and said, "That's fine. This dragon elephant fist is extremely powerful and is a first-class boxing method. It is naturally suitable for you to practice." As he said, he took out a boxing manual. It is called a boxing manual, but it looks more like a scripture. "By the way, the other party sent 2 people over when you were attacked. Do you want to go and see?" Lu Shengaiyu asked. "No, Deputy Chief Lu can decide." Qin Yang said softly. "Well, we can't decide the life and death of others at will. I think we should hand these 2 people over to the government office. Don't worry, I will definitely give you justice." After Lu Shengaiyu finished his polite words, he talked to Qin Yang for a few more words and left the courtyard. A first-class martial arts method is hush money. It seems that Lu Shengaiyu has also gained a lot this time. Qin Yang looked at the dragon elephant fist in his hand and smiled. From the beginning to the end, he did not put his hope on the Sky Patrol. This dragon elephant fist was beyond his expectation. He didn't expect that this Deputy Chief Lu was so generous. As for the other party's words about sending someone to the government office, he just regarded it as empty talk. "It's a pity that I don't have time to practice now. Otherwise, I would really like to see how strong the first-class boxing is." Qin Yang only wanted to break through to the key realm and put all other martial arts aside. He called up the panel. "Host, Qin Yang Turtle Snake Art, 9 layers, 657 over 3000. Hunyuan Yiki cover, perfect. Hunyuan Ki, Thunder Palm, great accomplishment. 265 over 1500, within a month and a half. I should be able to fully practice the turtle snake art. Go to Linkson Tower first to exchange for beaming black water true art." Qin Yang did what he wanted to do. He quickly went to Linkson Tower and spent 1000 contribution points to directly exchange for beaming black water true art. In this way, his contribution points were only 20 points. Qin Yang thought it was worth it. When he returned to his courtyard with the beaming black water true kung fu, he saw Han Qianayu waiting for him. "Director Han, why are you here?" Qin Yang asked curiously. "Did you agree to Deputy Chief Lu's conditions?" Han Qianayu asked. "Yes, a first-class boxing manual. I think few people can refuse it." Qin Yang admitted honestly. In Linjiang City before him, no matter how much money he spent, he probably couldn't get a first-class boxing manual. First-class boxing manuals are almost something that can't be bought with money. Generally, only large martial arts halls or martial arts sects have them. This first-class martial arts is regarded as a treasure of the sect. Once it is discovered that it has been leaked, they will do everything possible to eliminate it at all costs. Even if they have money to buy it back, they may be visited by the forces that deal with martial arts leaks. Han Qianayu's lips moved and finally nodded at Qin Yang. "Then you can come to me if you have anything." She originally wanted to come to discuss with Qin Yang and tell him about Lu Shengaiu's attitude. But now that the matter is done, she can't say anything. After all, Qin Yang also got martial arts that satisfied him. The other party was too powerful, so there was really no need to fight to the death. "Manager Han, can I ask you something?" Qin Yang asked. "Go ahead." Han Qianayu did not refuse. "Who is the force behind Ikian?" Qin Yang asked seriously. "You chose not to say anything. It's useless to know these things, and it may even harm you." Han Qianayu said softly. "I'm just a little curious, what kind of organization is it that even the patrol department has to retreat 3 points?" Qin Yang smiled. Han Qianayu thought for a while and said, "Have you heard of Fu Heihao Mansion?" "I don't know." Qin Yang shook his head. Marquis Fu Hei was once a great general with outstanding military achievements in the Deu dynasty. 20 years ago, the Nanmang tribe raised an army of 300,000 and invaded the Deu dynasty. At that time, the Deu dynasty was in the process of succession of the throne. The old emperor died of a sudden illness. The new emperor had just ascended the throne and the court was still relatively chaotic. No response was made for a while, resulting in the loss of 3 continents and even the momentum of approaching Zhangzhou. In the end, it was Marquis Fu Hei who turned the tide, gathered the remaining soldiers of the 3 continents, called the Fuhei army, and launched an earth-shaking battle with the Nandmang tribe near the White Dragon Temple. This battle lasted for 5 days and 5 nights. The Fuhei army suffered 70,000 casualties and the Nandmang tribe suffered 100,000 casualties. Mountains of corpses and seas of blood are not enough to describe it. It was too tragic. This is the legendary Battle of White Dragon Temple. Chapter 91 Blackfish. Battle of Beilang Temple. Qin Yang seemed to see an epic, bloody and tragic battle just by listening to Han Qianyu's description. Marquis Fuhei blocked the invasion of the Nandmang foreign race. Not long after the Battle of Beilang Temple, the Imperial Army arrived and joined forces with the Fuhei army to recover the lost land. They entered the Nandmang wasteland, beheaded 100,000 people, and forced the Nandmang royal family to flee to their ancestral land. Even now, the foreign races in the Nandmang wasteland have not recovered their vitality and dare not invade the border of the Deu dynasty again. Marquis Fuhei was also awarded the title of Marquis because of this battle. Han Qianyu said softly, "Could it be that the force behind the scenes that wants to deal with me is the Fuhei Marquis mansion?" Qin Yang looked shocked. He didn't expect it to be like this. To be precise, it should be the Blackfish House. 10 years ago, Fuhei Hao retired and returned to his hometown, Yangning Prefecture. Since then, a mysterious organization, the Blackfish House, has appeared in Yangning Prefecture. It is said that this Blackfish House is working for Fuhei Hao Mansion and specializes in doing things that are not allowed to see the light. The cause of this incident, that is, the disappearance of the woman, is the Blackfish House behind the scenes. Han Qianyu said in a deep voice. What does the Lord of Fuhei Hao Mansion in the Blackfish House want to do by doing so many tricks? Qin Yang wanted to get more information from Han Qianyu. I don't know. If you want to get out of it, it's best not to know these things. Han Qianyu ended the conversation and left directly. Qin Yang waited for her to leave before muttering, "It's not that easy to get out." He thought about it and walked out of the residential area again. He walked along the area of the Xuxi department and finally came to an area with strange buildings. This is the area of the Zuanling department. Generally, people who appear here are spiritual masters. These buildings look very strange. Some look like Taoist temples, and some are strange in shape. For example, the building in Qin Yang's eyes was filled with various coffins. In another open house, Qin Yang saw a large number of bottles and jars, and many twisted and hideous masks were placed there, which was extremely scary. Zuanling department is the most special place in the patrol department. There are not even people from the patrol department patrolling here. It feels gloomy even in broad daylight. Qin Yang walked in it with a normal look. A grey figure suddenly appeared behind Qin Yang, bared his fangs, and bit Qin Yang's neck fiercely. Bang! A huge and heavy iron elbow hit the figure hard. The grey figure's head was squeezed and ulcerated by the elbow, and flew back several meters. Qin Yang turned around and strode towards the grey figure. Bang! The other party hadn't even stood up yet, and Qin Yang stepped on him hard again. The grey figure roared, and his chest was stepped on deeply. "No more fighting. If you keep fighting, this corpse will be scrapped." A pale-faced scholar holding a scroll in his hand suddenly appeared in front of Qin Yang and shouted urgently. Qin Yang snorted coldly and kicked the grey-white figure towards the pale-faced scholar. Bang! The grey-white figure flew out like a cannonball. The scroll in the white-faced scholar's hand emitted a spiritual light and surprisingly collected the grey-white figure. Qin Yang was slightly surprised. This method was somewhat magical. Haha, I have said that Qin Yang is not easy to mess with, but you, a nerd, just don't believe it. This is good. The evil corpse was almost blown up by Qin Yang. Song Ling's gloating voice came over. He was hanging with a white silk, directly hanging from a roof. The white-faced scholar shook his head and sighed, looking distressed. In addition to the evil corpse being almost blown up, he had a bet with Song Lingzi. The evil corpse failed to attack successfully this time, which means that the bet failed, and he had to lose a good thing to Song Lingzi. "Song Lingzi, I have something to talk to you about," Qin Yang said softly. "Come to my yard to talk. Nerd, hurry up and deliver the things I want to me. If you refuse to pay, I will go to the old man to complain." Song Lingzi chuckled, and the white silk disappeared with a whoosh, and the whole person fell to the ground. The white-faced scholar sneered, "I'm not like you. I will deliver it tomorrow." After saying that, He left directly. Song Lingzi smiled triumphantly and took Qin Yang to a house. The house was full of white silk. Qin Yang looked over and saw that there were faint shadows hanging on these white silks. These shadows seemed to feel the breath of Qin Yang's life, and they looked at him in unison. If it were an ordinary person, I would probably be scared to death. But Qin Yang could still smile. Hello. Qin Yang waved his hand. Why are you so polite? These guys are just simple souls, without any ability to think. Song Lingzi smiled. I came to you to ask you something. Qin Yang got straight to the point. Damn. You're so direct, I'm a little scared. Song Lingzi stretched out his hand. The door suddenly closed. Whoosh, several white lights lit up strangely in the room, and the environment became even more eerie and gloomy. Song Lingzi, you should know what happened to me recently. Qin Yang said lightly. I know it's not that I don't help you, but I can't afford to offend the people behind you. Song Lingzi smiled bitterly. I know I don't want you to take action. I just want to confirm something. Qin Yang said seriously. You ask first. I'll see if I can tell. Song Lingzi said helplessly. This time, the Blackfish building attacked me, seemingly to retaliate for what I did last time. But these days I feel something is wrong. I always feel that the Blackfish building has some purpose besides revenge on me. Qin Yang asked doubtfully. He spent a few days recuperating from his injury, thinking about this matter, and had another guess in his mind. But this guess needed someone to confirm it. Your brain is really amazing. Since you even know about the Blackfish Tower, I'm not afraid to tell you. The other party is still going after Xiao Huan. Song Lingzi whispered. Xiao Huan. What's so special about her? Qin Yang was surprised. In his eyes, Xiao Huan was just an ordinary girl. Xiao Huan is not simple. She has yin blood, which is very rare. It seems to be one of the 9 strange bloods. Song Lingzi whispered. What's so special about yin blood? Qin Yang was surprised. What yin blood? What 9 strange bloods? This is the first time he heard of. Yin blood means that the yin qi in the body is stronger than that of ordinary people, and it usually only appears in women. This kind of blood is generally a genius in cultivation. But I guess the Blackfish Tower didn't capture Xiao Huan back to teach her to cultivate. It might be to use her blood for sacrifice or something like that. It might even be to cultivate some evil skills. Song Lingzi guessed. It was only after he had more contact with Xiao Huan that he discovered the secret of this girl. That is to say, the real reason why the Blackfish Tower attacked me this time was because Xiao Huan was in the Sky Patrol department and they had no chance to attack. Only after killing me will Xiao Huan be forced to leave the Sky Patrol department, giving them an opportunity to take advantage of. Qin Yang quickly sorted out some things. Chapter 92 Savings. I don't know. I was confused today and forgot what I said. Who are you? What are you doing here? Song Lingzi pretended to be crazy. Song Lingzi, you ate so many meals with Xiao Huan. Can you really bear to see her get into trouble? Qin Yang smiled. Brother, it's not like I didn't give you money for meals. Besides, Xiao Huan is quite safe in the Sky Patrol department. The Blackfish building can't possibly come in to kill them. If he really dares to come in to kill them, I, Song Lingzi, will be the first to take action. Song Lingzi straightened his chest. We can't let Xiao Huan stay here for the rest of her life. Qin Yang frowned slightly. How can we guard against thieves? There's no way. Wait until you become the head of the Sky Patrol department. Maybe the Blackfish building won't dare to take action. Song Lingzi shrugged. There was no point in discussing it any further. Song Lingzi told Qin Yang the answers he wanted to know. He said goodbye and left, returning to his own courtyard. Master, you are finally back. I thought you wouldn't come to eat. Xiao Huan was waiting for Qin Yang in the yard. Seeing him come back, she was surprised. The dishes outside are not as delicious as yours. Hurry up and bring it here. Qin Yang laughed. Okay. Xiao Huan nodded. In Xiao Huan's heart, Qin Yang is an omnipotent master who can solve any problem. After eating, Qin Yang returned to his room. His face was not so relaxed. In the final analysis, it is still my own lack of strength. At least, break through to the true energy realm first. Qin Yang's face was solemn. The power of the Blackfish house is beyond doubt. But he will not retreat. He can't even protect his personal maid. Qin Yang will not be able to mix in the future. Quickly adjusting his mentality, Qin Yang went to bed and began to practice the turtle snake energy. In the days that followed, Qin Yang entered a state of retreat, with only one thought in his mind: break through to the true energy realm. When he reaches the true energy realm, his strength will soar. Even if dead fish eyes and he can't deal with him again, he will not flee in embarrassment. Moreover, after the turtle snake art is cultivated to perfection, new magical powers can be condensed. Since Qin Yang received the Dragon Elephant Fist manual, he did not publicize the fact that he was attacked. The only people who knew about this in the entire patrol department were Lu Shengaiyu, Zhang Xiao, Han Qianyu and Song Lingzi. Naturally, they would not spread the news. This matter was covered up quietly, as if it had never happened. A black crow spread its wings and flew across the vast and clear Bijiang River. Finally, the crow landed on a fishing boat. The bamboo man was wearing a bamboo hat and fishing at the bow of the boat. The crow landed on the side and made an unpleasant sound. Jiguan, you are still in a good mood. What else can I do? The owner of the building has said that the Yin blood girl must be caught back. I have no choice. The bamboo man shook his head slightly. Then you wait for death. I have been guarding the patrol department for so long. Qin Yang seems to have made up his mind not to come out of the patrol department. The same is true for his maid. The black feathered crow said lightly. Qin Yang will come out eventually. Why would the sky patrol keep idle people? Ji Guan said calmly. Then how do you plan to do it? Black feathered crow asked. It's very simple. I will kill him. Ji Guan swung the fishing rod violently. With a splash, a big fat fish was caught by him. The black feathered crow suddenly opened its beak and swallowed the big fish in one gulp. Gilu, the body of this big fish is obviously bigger than the black feathered crow, but it still swallowed it in one gulp. This evil killer is really miserable. Or in this way, are you really not afraid of Lu Shengaiyu's anger? You have slapped him in the face again and again. Black feathered crow said calmly. Lu Shengaiyu? If it weren't for the Yangning Sky Patrol to set up branches in various counties, Lu Shengaiyu would be just a silver medal evil killer. Ji Guan said calmly. The evil killers in the Sky Patrol are also divided into different levels. The lowest is the iron plate, and the higher ones are the bronze, silver, jade, and gold plates. But he is indeed the deputy chief of the Mountain and River Patrol Department now. The black feathered crow reminded. Don't worry. I will leave the Mountain and River County after I kill someone. Does Lu Shengaiyu dare to catch up with me? Ji Guan said indifferently. He threw the fishing hook back into the river. Besides, Qin Yang may think that we are just taking revenge and don't know our real goal at all. Maybe, after some days, the target will leave the patrol department. Ji Guan continued. Then I wish you such shitty luck. The black feathered crow flapped its wings, soared into the sky, and quickly disappeared into the sky. Ji Guan continued fishing. He knew that Qin Yang was a frightened bird now, and he would not leave the patrol department so soon. A stream of cold and gloomy air was surging in Qin Yang's body. The courtyard was filled with moist and cold blue water vapor, and it was hazy. The mist became thicker and thicker. Finally, it seemed to be pulled by something, and gradually turned into a huge turtle snake phantom. The dark blue light bloomed brighter and brighter. The turtle snake phantom became more and more condensed, and finally turned into a little blue light, and flew into Qin Yang's brow. In an instant, Qin Yang felt his whole body trembling, and his body couldn't help but swell up. It was the agitated turtle snake internal energy that swelled up, and the blood, flesh, and fascia were all congested. So far, the turtle snake energy in Qin Yang's body has finally been cultivated to perfection, and the internal energy is rapidly circulating according to the outline of the turtle snake. Qin Yang opened his eyes and looked at the turtle snake art. Turtle snake art, perfection, extreme cold, extreme cold. Your internal energy contains extreme cold breath, which can freeze everything. Interesting. Qin Yang stood up. Before, the turtle snake energy contained the cold breath. However, the effect of these cold breaths was not obvious. But with this extreme cold magical power, everything may be different. He came to a flower pot. The flower pot was planted with a red flower, which was blooming beautifully. Qin Yang gently placed his hand on the flower. A stream of blue air escaped from his palm and landed on the petals. The whole flower froze quickly in a breath. and turned into a nice sculpture. Not bad. Once in a tough battle, the power of this extreme cold magic will be revealed. Qin Yang murmured to himself. Now that the turtle snake art is complete, it is time for the next technique. Beaming black water true art, this legendary forbidden technique. After obtaining this technique, Qin Yang has never opened it. Now the time has finally come. After Qin Yang stabilized his internal breath, he went to the room and took out a black book cover. The key realm is to further condense the internal energy and turn it into higher purity energy. This step involves many meridians in the body, which must be opened one by one. The most basic internal breath technique requires opening the 12 meridians. Beaming black water true art even requires opening the 8 extraordinary meridians, and the operation route is extremely complicated. Especially for ordinary people, every time a meridian is opened, it needs to be cautious. Generally, it takes several years to break through from the internal energy to the true energy realm. Half a month should be enough, Qin Yang said softly. Chapter 93 Visualization. For Qin Yang, practicing a skill does not require too many skills. As long as you get started with a skill, you can break through by constantly improving your proficiency. In this process, the meridians will be opened, and then you can break through directly. What's more, he has the blessing of meditation. But when Qin Yang opened the beaming black water true skill, he was still shocked by the dense internal energy circulation routes. These routes are too complicated, just like a dozen spider webs stacked together, complicated and disordered. This forbidden skill is really different. No wonder so many people fail in practice. If you remember a wrong running route, it's easy to go crazy. Qin Yang shook his head. The shock in his eyes gradually faded and turned into a calm color, like an old monk sitting in a dry well. The root of beaming black water true skill is gradually emerging and slowly absorbed into his mind. 5 days later, Qin Yang finally recorded the running route of beaming black water true skill completely in his mind. He started practicing without much hesitation. The cold blue turtle snake energy quickly spread from the danshan and began to circulate in the meridians. At the same time, he began to visualize an ancient black beast with a dragon head, a snake tail and a turtle body. This beast is called Zuan Wu. Zuan means black, representing the deep and fierce evil. Wu means strength, suppressing all demons and monsters. Without Wu, how can we suppress the demons and monsters in the North Sea? Zuan Wu gradually took shape in Qin Yang's mind. But soon, Qin Yang felt his head burst. It seemed that Zuan Wu was not something that mortals could visualize. But he couldn't stop, and his mind couldn't help but visualize the image of Zuan Wu. The dark and ferocious dragon head with deep scales appeared in Qin Yang's mind. The pair of dragon eyes contained boundless fierceness and coldness. Even in a state of meditation, Qin Yang felt like his head burst. But he completely put this pain behind his mind and frantically visualized the appearance of Zuan Wu. Behind the dragon head was a huge and hard turtle body. When the turtle body visualization appeared, Qin Yang's 2 eyeballs suddenly bulged out, covered with bloodshot, as if they were about to explode. Even at this point, Qin Yang felt neither sad nor happy, and continued to visualize. Anyway, he couldn't stop, whether he wanted to or not. The violent and sinister snake head appeared behind the turtle body. Then, there were 4 thick claws, as sharp as dragon claws. Bang when the black tortoise appeared in Qin Yang's mind. Qin Yang suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Blood flowed from his eyes, ears, and nose, bleeding from all 5 orifices. But his expression was still terrifyingly calm, without any pain. When the black tortoise appeared completely in his mind, Qin Yang seemed to see a terrible black sea filled with demonic energy and countless demons raging and roaring. Then, a black tortoise appeared in the Black Sea, setting off a tsunami, suppressing and killing the demons and monsters one by one. During this process, the internal energy in his body was completely in an unconscious state of operation. Then, Qin Yang felt something was broken inside his body. This time, Qin Yang couldn't even maintain his cultivation state, and the shadow of Zuan Wu in his mind suddenly disappeared. The hand Tai in lung meridian is broken. This forbidden technique is really weird. If I wasn't in a state of meditation, I would really become a madman. Qin Yang wiped the blood off his face. The real horror of this beaming black water true art is not the complicated operation route, but the visualization of Zuan Wu. because Zuan-Wu is too huge and magical, and once it starts, it cannot be stopped. In cultivation, there are upper and lower danshan. The lower danshan is the sea of Qi, and the upper danshan is called Shenfu, the place where the spirit is hidden, located in the brain. When visualizing Zuan-Wu just now, Qin Yang's upper danshan Shenfu almost couldn't hold on. Zuan-Wu, an ancient beast, is still too powerful, and it is easy for ordinary people to become mentally confused when visualizing it. Qin Yang finally relied on his firm will and deep and focused state of meditation to put aside life and death and barely visualize it. Although a little embarrassed, Qin Yang was very excited because he saw a new column on his panel. Host, Qin Yang Belly Black Water True Art, not yet entered, 1/30, Turtle Snake Art, perfect, Extreme Cold, Primordial Key Cover, perfect, Primordial Key, Thunder Palm, Great Accomplishment, 265/1500, not yet entered. Seems to be, because I haven't broken through yet. Qin Yang was stunned when he saw the words after Belly Black Water True Art. This first class martial arts is different, and there is also a not yet entered level. So, as long as you practice 30 times, you can break through to the entry level. In other words, it means breaking through to the Qi realm. Qin Yang guessed in his heart. These 30 times should be to break through the meridians, and then let the internal Qi flow through the whole body and turn into Qi. After the first success, Qin Yang thought about taking a quick rest and then practicing again. Although the bleeding from the 5 orifices may seem scary, it doesn't do much harm to him. It's really complicated to practice Belly Black Water True Art once. It takes a long time and consumes a lot of mental energy. You can only practice about 3 times a day, and you need to rest your mind. Otherwise your mind can't bear the visualization of Zuan-Wu. 10 days later, as the last loop channel of the Miracle 8 Meridians was broken, the turtle and snake Qi in Qin Yang's body was connected into one Qi, and a mysterious Qi was born. The turtle and snake Qi became more and more condensed, and the dark blue gas gradually turned into a kind of blue-black true Qi. This true Qi is also deep and cold, and there is a kind of violence and fierceness that the turtle and snake Qi does not have. Zuan-Wu can suppress many demons in the North Sea. In addition to its own strong strength, its temper is also extremely violent. When all the turtle and snake Qi turned into black water true Qi, Qin Yang opened his eyes. His eyes seemed to turn into a dark ocean, dark and deep, containing extreme cold and violent. At the same time, a layer of blue-black true Qi appeared on Qin Yang's body. This is not Yunyuan Qi, but body protecting true Qi, which can only be formed by breaking through to the true Qi realm and breaking through various meridians. It's just that due to the characteristics of Yunyuan Qi, it integrates all the vital energy in the body, and this body protecting Qi is naturally one of them. The future Yunyuan Qi will become even more terrifying. Qin Yang opened his mouth and spurted out a stream of blue-black Qi. Whoosh, the vase in the distance was hit by the blue-black Qi, but it did not break and quickly condensed into ice and froze. Finally, I have reached the Qi realm. Qin Yang clenched his fists and felt the deep, violent, and cold Qi in his body. The feeling of mastering a powerful force made him very intoxicated. You know, gathering Qi to Qi, it seems to be only one word, but it is a world of difference. A Qi gathering warrior is still a figure in Shan County. But if you break through to the Qi realm, you will be a guest of honor of the major families, or even the backbone of the power. It's a completely different concept. What's more, Qin Yang is a very terrifying fighter. Once you reach the Qi realm, your strength will be even more rapid. After the breakthrough, Qin Yang calmed the black water Qi in his body, swallowed a few pills, and continued to practice. He had just broken through, so he still needed to stabilize and master the power of Qi. Chapter 94 Transfer. A few days later, a carriage quietly left the Sky Patrol Department, galloped all the way, and then stopped in front of a mansion. A man and a woman got out of the carriage and quickly entered the mansion. After the driver sent them there and parked the carriage, he patted his butt and left. Finally appeared this Qin Yang is really patient. He waited in the Sky Patrol Department for so many days. A black feathered crow stood on the eaves of a tall building, and its 2 black eyes overlooked the mansion below. Even though they were dozens of meters apart, it could still see the appearance of the man and woman. It was Qin Yang and Zhao Huan. The black feathered crow flapped its wings quietly and slid silently onto the eaves of the Qin mansion's roof. In the room, subtle voices came into the black feathered crow's ears. "Master, why did you come back suddenly?" The voice was old and deep. The black feathered crow knew, as soon as he heard it, that it should be the old guy in Qin Yang's mansion. "Qin He, things have changed. I have discussed this with Deputy Director Lu. If I stay here, I may be assassinated by that mysterious force again. But Deputy Director Lu doesn't want to offend that force completely for me, so he can only think of a compromise for me." Qin Yang's voice came out. The black feathered crow's eyes turned, knowing that he was going to hear some secrets, and listened more carefully. "What compromise?" Qin He asked in surprise. "That is to secretly transfer me to Anxin County, Yangning Prefecture. Deputy Director Lu will keep it a secret for me, and I will also change my name and appear in a completely new identity. By then, that mysterious force should not be able to find me." Qin Yang lowered his voice, but it was unusually clear in the ears of the black feathered crow. This made the black feathered crow slightly stunned. It originally thought that Qin Yang couldn't hold it in at the Sky Patrol. Unexpectedly, he came back to run away. "Well, it's good to leave this troublesome place." "Master, when are we leaving?" Qin He asked. "Tonight. There's a carriage outside, and we don't have anything. Just leave." Qin Yang said softly. "Okay, I'll go pack my clothes now." Qin He nodded. The conversation ended here. The black feathered crow flapped its wings and flew away from the eaves. Its figure slid across the densely packed green tie leaves, flew out of the towering city walls, and finally came to the vast and calm Jijiang River. Jijiang still wore a bamboo hat and sat alone on the fishing boat to fish. Seeing the black feathered crow fall, he was a little surprised. "It seems that there is news." Jijiang smiled. "Qin Yang will leave Shan City overnight tonight and go to Anxin County to take up his post." The black feathered crow combed its shiny black feathers with its sharp beak and said lightly, "It seems that Lu Shengaiu still has a conscience. He knows that we will keep an eye on Qin Yang, so he specially arranged such a way for him." Jijiang smiled. "Why do I feel like it's a dead end?" The black feathered crow also laughed hoarsely. "When Qin Yang offended us, he was doomed to die," Jijiang said disdainfully. After he finished speaking, he asked again, "Is a yin blood girl with Qin Yang?" "Of course she is. I saw it with my own eyes." The yin blood girl followed Qin Yang into the mansion. Black feathered crow said indifferently, "Let's do it tonight. I haven't been active for a long time." Jijiang stood up. "If we can't beat Qin Yang later, it will be fun." Black feathered crow laughed. "A key gathering warrior can beat Qin in the key realm and escape with the joint efforts of two key realm warriors. I have to say that Qin Yang does have some strength. But I'm a true key warrior. A key gathering warrior is the strongest. How can he be stronger than me? What's more, I have Qin and Chen Yun to assist me," Jijiang said indifferently. Even the black feathered crow was just a bit mean, and he never thought highly of Qin Yang in his heart. "Okay, I'll go back and watch for you. Once Qin Yang leaves, I'll give you a signal." The black feathered crow flapped its wings and flew away. Jijiang also jumped from the fishing boat. His body was light, his toes made little ripples on the water, and he quickly headed for the river. The day passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, the sun went down. Xiao Huan, Qin He and Qin Yang each carried a package, quickly left the mansion, and got into the carriage. Qin He acted as the coachman, driving the carriage out of the city. Inside the carriage, Qin Yang seemed a little panicked, looking out the window from time to time, afraid that someone would chase him. Xiao Huan had no idea how dangerous she was, and even dozed off. After leaving the city, the carriage sped quickly on the dark official road. About 20 miles later, although Qin He was old, his eyes were not old at all. He vaguely saw the outlines of two figures appearing in front of him, standing in the middle of the official road. Looking at the speeding carriage, there was no intention of dodging at all. "Master, someone is blocking the road ahead," Qin He shouted. "Stop." Qin Yang did not choose to crash into it directly, but asked Qin He to stop the carriage. After the carriage stopped steadily, Qin Yang jumped out of the carriage. "Uncle Qin, you watch the carriage, I'll go meet these two people," Qin Yang said lightly. "Master, be careful," Qin He whispered. He knew he could not help much. "Don't worry. Just 2 rotten fish and shrimps. Qin Yang smiled. As he said that, he raised his legs and walked forward. The 2 people blocking the road were naturally Qin Yang's acquaintances. Qian also had dead fish eyes who were good at swordsmanship. You two, you are really haunting. I don't plan to play with you anymore. You still have to come. Qin Yang frowned slightly. Qin Yang, this is the fate of offending us. Revenge will never end until you die. Qian sneered. Boy, you fooled me last time. This time, let's see how you can run again. Dead fish eyes looked at Qin Yang, his eyes full of cold murderous intent. I never thought of running away. Last time you stabbed me with a sword. How about I stab you with a sword this time? Qin Yang smiled. Just you? Dead fish eyes sneered, unsheathed the sword in his hand, flashing cold light, and shot out like a flying sword. The trajectory of the sword can be seen at a glance, just a white dotted line, incredibly fast. Qin Yang sneered. Lingaihu knife was pulled out suddenly. The blue-black internal energy emerged and filled the muscles of his arms. An extremely cold breath spread all over his body, and his eyes were full of cruelty and coldness. Pio Junfeng Huoshi. The extremely cold breath burst out with the violent rage of fierce fire. His knife light seemed to be wrapped in terrifying explosive power, and it slashed out extremely exaggeratedly. In Qian's eyes, it seemed as if he saw a half moon wrapped in blue-black flames descending. Be careful. Qian roared wildly. This knife was too terrifying. Even though they were far apart, he still felt the terrifying power of this knife. Dead fish eyes felt his hands and feet were cold, and his soul was trembling. He didn't know why Qin Yang was able to cut this knife, so he could only use all his true energy and thrust the long sword in his hand out quickly, as if it turned into a big net covering him. Chapter 95. One knife. Dead fish eyes reacted very quickly. After realizing the horror of Qin Yang's swordsmanship, he quickly changed his sword momentum. Driven by the power of true ki, the long sword quickly cut out dozens of sword lights, interweaving into a large net. This large net is not used to attack and cover the opponent and crush it. It is a defensive giant net that can intercept all enemy attacks before the sword net. This is the Xianluo sword method, which can attack and defend. Dead fish eyes knew that, as long as he could survive this sword, Qian would come to support. Too fragile. Qin Yang laughed disdainfully. The Lingaihu sword mixed with the beaming black water true ki, forming a special evil spirit. This is the effect of breaking the front. With the blessing of beaming black water true ki, it is even more terrifying. With a puff, the sword net that dead fish eyes woven with all his life was extremely fragile in front of this blue-black sword light, and was finally chopped into pieces by a sword. Dead fish eyes widened, and stood there blankly. You actually broke through to the true ki realm. Dead fish eyes roared. What do you think? Qin Yang smiled. Puff. The next second, dead fish eyes chest split in two bloody and tragically, and he fell to the ground. Dead fish eyes was dead. It's your turn. Qian. Qin Yang showed his bloody teeth at Qian. Damn it. Qian was terrified. In less than a month, Qin Yang broke through to the ki realm. Exclamation mark. For ordinary people, from gathering ki to ki realm, even if it is a third-rate internal ki kung fu, it is a slow and laborious method, which requires opening up meridians one by one, and takes at least several years. Qin Yang was able to break through in a month. How did he do it? But Qin Yang didn't give him time to think at all. He took the Lingaihu knife and rushed forward. Whoosh! His figure turned into a rapid afterimage, like a flying swallow flying through the sky. A blue-black knife light slashed like a gust of wind. The speed was so fast that it seemed to shuttle through space. Qian was already shocked by Qin Yang's previous knife that killed dead fish eyes. Seeing such a terrifying knife, he hurriedly circulated his true energy and used Qin Gang to fly backwards. He leaped up and jumped directly to a big tree beside the official road. His toes lightly touched the branches and leaves, and his figure flew away. He was very good at Qin Gang. But Qin Yang's short-range burst was even more terrifying. When he activated the floating light and shadow magic power, the whole person turned into a floating light and rushed towards Qian. The Lingaihu knife slashed in the air, wanting to cut him in half bloodily and cruelly. Qian only felt a mad cold air attack, as cold as falling into an ice cave. For a moment, he had only one thought in his mind. Death is inevitable. He can't even turn around now. The only thing left is to wait for death. At this moment, a sound of air tearing suddenly appeared from the dark void. A slender black shadow wrapped in a violent wind whistled towards Qin Yang. True Gang Realm Master? Qin Yang frowned slightly, pulled back the Lingyu knife, and swept it out. With a clang, Qin Yang was flung out more than 10 meters by a strange force. Interesting. Are you the person in charge of the Blackfish building? Qin Yang grinned. Qin just landed on the ground. Next to him, a tall and thin figure wearing a bamboo hat and holding a bamboo pole appeared. Yes, I didn't expect you to break through to the true Qi realm. No wonder Lu Shengai is willing to save your life. Ji Guan looked at Qin Yang and said in surprise. He originally thought that he didn't need to take action tonight. Qin and Dead Fish Eyes could solve it. Unexpectedly, Dead Fish Eyes was cut by Qin Yang with one knife. As for Qin, if he hadn't acted quickly enough, he would probably be in danger. Qin Yang's strength after the breakthrough made him a little scared. It's a pity that you are still haunting. Qin Yang shook his head. You are unlucky to have provoked us. Ji Guan held the smooth and shiny bamboo pole with both hands, stretched out his right foot, floated down, and posed a Taegang fishing style. Staff method? It's really rare. Qin Yang's eyes were full of excitement. This is a master of Zen Gang. Gang is the terrible destructive energy generated after the true Qi is highly condensed. It is more terrible than the destructive power and explosive power of the true Qi. Qin Yang, I'll send you on your way. Ji Guan shouted in a low voice, and the bamboo pole in his hand suddenly swept out a violent whistling sound, turning into a residual image and hitting Qin Yang. Qin Yang looked solemn, holding the Lingyu knife with both hands and slashing straight down. The bamboo pole was extremely fast, but Qin Yang's reaction and judgment were also extremely terrifying. The Lingyu knife accurately cut into the bamboo pole. With a bang, sparks burst out. This bamboo pole gave Qin Yang the feeling that it was not bamboo, but metal. It's just that this metal has the flexibility of bamboo. Poison dragon out of the cave. Ji Guan's eyes condensed, and he grabbed the bamboo pole with both hands and stabbed it out like a spear. A yellow light shot straight into Qin Yang's eyes. Qin Yang waved his hand, and the Lingyu knife cut out a half-moon arc. Collision again. Qin Yang's beaming black water key was cold and violent, with an extremely cold aura. It was even able to resist Ji Guan's true energy without losing. What an amazing true energy. What kind of internal breathing technique are you practicing? Ji Guan frowned slightly. Qin Yang's true energy made his hand slightly cold. I'll tell you when you die. Qin Yang laughed loudly and rushed forward. The Lingyu sword seemed to turn into a terrifying mountain and pressed down towards Ji Guan. This mountain was not only huge, deep and heavy, but also carried an extremely cold aura, like a 1,000-year-old iceberg. This was the terrifying part of beaming black water true energy. The condensed true energy itself was extremely strong, and with the extremely cold magical power of the turtle snake art, its power would not be inferior to the aura. Ji Guan felt this extremely cold aura, and he clenched the bamboo pole with both hands, and then the whole bamboo pole began to emit yellow aura. Yellow dragon, raise your head. The yellow bamboo pole seemed to turn into a huge yellow dragon, raised its hideous and huge head, and slammed into the iceberg. Boom. There was a loud noise. It was like a mountain collapsing. The yellow light and the blue-black light collided fiercely and then exploded. Qin Yang and Ji Guan separated at the same time. Haha. As expected of a true martial artist. Qin Yang roared excitedly, holding the knife in one hand, and rushed towards Ji Guan again. Ji Guan looked at the frost condensed on the bamboo pole, snorted coldly, and shattered the frost with a violent swing, and swung the bamboo pole violently, making a sonic boom. Clang clang clang, the two of them fought fiercely. The Lingyu knife and the bamboo pole collided wildly. Qin Yang's beaming black water key contained extremely cold characteristics, but Ji Guan's true key had a strange vibration force. Every time they collided, Qin Yang felt numbness in his palm. As the number of collisions increased, the numbness gradually turned into a violent vibration force, which directly cracked his tiger's mouth and bleed. Qin Yang, you are still too young. Ji Guan growled, stood on one leg, and twisted his waist with a strange momentum, and thrust out the bamboo pole. Immortal pointing the way. Whoosh. This move was too sudden, and Qin Yang had never expected it. The bamboo pole went straight through the Lingao knife and hit Qin Yang's heart. At the same time, Ji Guan exploded the shock force contained in his true energy. He wanted to directly shatter Qin Yang's heart meridian. Impossible. Qin Yang roared wildly and suddenly burst out a blue-black airflow. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 96. When Ji Guan used the Immortal's guidance to pierce Qin Yang's heart, a violent and cold blue-black airflow burst out, turning into a violent and cold blue-black snake, wrapping around Qin Yang's body. The bamboo pole suddenly pierced into a blue-black snake scale. Boom. The violent shock force and the cold and deep Yunyuan Qi collided fiercely. A terrible hurricane suddenly rose up, blowing up the weeds on the official road. For a moment, sand and rocks flew. A ball of blood bloomed on Qin Yang's chest. Ji Guan's Immortal's guidance was really powerful. Even the Yunyuan Qi blessed by the beaming black water true skill was still pierced. This is the horror of Ganqi. It is more condensed than the true Qi and can burst out with greater destructive power. But Ji Guan's face changed. Because when the Yunyuan Qi was pierced, it was like a punctured balloon, and a strong and extremely cold blue-black airflow suddenly burst out. The airflow was so fierce that Ji Guan had no time to dodge, and he was completely engulfed by the extremely cold airflow. For a moment, a light layer of frost condensed on his skin and hair. The cold air penetrated into his skin and flesh, making Ji Guan feel that his blood circulation was frozen. Qin Yang, whose chest was blasted with blood, grinned, and the Lingao knife was wrapped in a dark blue airflow, turning into a cold knife light and slashing towards Ji Guan. Ding ding ding. Ji Guan was infected by the extremely cold breath, but his body did not keep up after he reacted. He tapped the bamboo pole in his hand, barely resisting the attack of the Lingao knife. After more than a dozen consecutive moves, Qin Yang swung Ji Guan's bamboo pole away with a mountain falling force. At the same time, he gathered tension in his palm and hit the thunder palm fiercely. Boom. In the dark night, it seemed that a series of lightning exploded, so dull that it hurt people's eardrums. Under He Qian's horrified eyes, Qin Yang's left hand continuously struck out more than a dozen palms, and the applause was thunderous, as if it was interwoven into a chain of lightning, and hit Ji Guan madly. Even if the Qi of a real Qi warrior protected his body, under the violent and fierce palm force, terrible Qi winds continued to burst out, cracks gradually appeared, and then were smashed to pieces by the violent palm force. Ji Guan kept vomiting blood. In addition to the violent power of Qin Yang's thunder palm, it also contained extremely cold internal energy. At this moment, Ji Guan felt like an ice sculpture. His internal organs ruptured and bled, and then frozen by the cold air. The Qi in his body wanted to condense, but was constantly blasted away by Qin Yang's palm force. Under the continuous heavy blows, Ji Guan's 5 orifices continued to bleed, his eyes bulged, and were extremely bloody. He fought back with all his strength, and with both hands, he swung the bamboo pole and smashed it at Qin Yang's forehead. Qin Yang did not dodge, and let the bamboo pole hit his head. With a bang. The blow was so powerful, that even the primordial Qi was smashed, causing Qin Yang's head to bleed. Then, the primordial Qi turned into an extremely cold breath and exploded. Bang. Ji Guan felt his body frozen by the cold again. In just a moment, Qin Yang's eyes were bleeding, and the Lingao knife swung towards Ji Guan's head. Whoosh. Ji Guan barely managed to sweep out the bamboo pole, but it was deflected by the Lingao knife, revealing a flaw. Ha ha ha. I'll send you on your way. Qin Yang laughed wildly, stepped forward suddenly, and raised his left elbow. His elbow was like a bell pestle, hitting Ji Guan's heart hard. Hitting a bell. Bang. Ji Guan was like being struck by lightning, and his body shook violently and flew backwards. Qin Yang grinned, grabbed the knife with both hands, and was about to split Ji Guan in half. At the critical moment, Ji Guan used up his last strength to poke out the bamboo pole. Clang sounded. The bamboo pole was chopped off by Qin Yang. Ji Guan took advantage of this opportunity, and finally caught a gap, and dodged more than 10 meters away. Qin Yang, you are really a monster. Ji Guan's bamboo hat had been blown away, revealing a pale face. His eyes and nose were bleeding, and he coughed up some blood plasma every time he spoke. He didn't expect that he would be defeated by a true key warrior in a head-on confrontation. And this true key warrior was still a key gathering warrior a month ago. So, you provoked me. It's your bad luck. Qin Yang raised the Lingyu knife and slowly approached Ji Guan. Cough cough cough. Do you think you can beat me like this? Ji Guan showed a sinister smile. A sound of strong wind suddenly came from behind. Qin Yang looked back, only to hear Qin He roar, and the carriage in the distance exploded into countless pieces. A black feathered crow bigger than a calf suddenly grabbed Xiaohun and soared into the sky. The next moment, the black feathered crow landed beside Ji Guan. Boy, you fooled me last time. This time, let's see how you can escape. The black feathered crow made a strange sound. Ji Guan took advantage of the situation and grabbed Xiaohun's neck fiercely. Qin Yang, your maid is on me now. Ji Guan grinned. Qin Yang looked strange. So what? Do you think I will surrender? The black feathered crow sneered. Of course not. It's just that our target has always been your maid. Now that you and Ji Guan have fought a big battle, your blood and true energy should be almost consumed. Then let me send you off. The black feathered crow was covered with black hair. Ji Guan took out a few pills and swallowed them, looking at Qin Yang with a sneer in his eyes. Fortunately, the black feathered crow has been following behind tonight. Otherwise it would be really dangerous. Qin Yang frowned slightly. After a series of battles, he was indeed not feeling well. The head and heart were severely damaged. Even with the talent of running back to the sea, the key was exhausted after continuous bursts. The black feathered crow was a treacherous spiritual master. With his current physical condition, he was probably in danger. Are you scared? I told you that you will not end well if you mess with us. This time, you are dead. The two black eyes of the black feathered crow flashed with strange cold light. It flapped its wings violently and was about to swoop over to capture and kill Qin Yang. Just as it flapped its wings, the black feathered crow heard a slight sound of breaking through the air. Before it could react, his wings and claws were tightly entangled by dozens of white silks. These white silks were shrinking wildly, as if they were going to strangle the black feathered crow to death. The black feathered crow roared, and its feathers exploded, trying to break free from these white silks. At this moment, Qin Yang waited for an opportunity to move. He suddenly burst into a flash of light and turned into a residual shadow and flew out. All the beaming black water ki was condensed on the Lingyu blade, flashing with a dark blue blade light, and suddenly slashed at the black feathered crow. This knife. Qin Yang used all his strength. It was as fast as fire. Puff. As the knife light flashed, a crow's cry vaguely emerged. The whole head of the black feathered crow was chopped off by Qin Yang's knife. Then when the head fell, countless white silk wrapped it. As if chewing sounds were heard. When the white silk dispersed, only some black feathers were left mixed with some flesh and blood. The head of the black feathered crow itself quietly turned into a headless corpse. Ji Guan looked at this scene, but did not dare to make any sound. There was also a white silk wrapped around his neck. This white silk was like a giant snake entwined, making him feel that his neck would be twisted off at any time. And all this was because of Xiaohun, this seemingly ordinary maid. Today is New Year's Eve. I wish all readers a happy new year in advance. Eat and drink well. Chapter 97 Behind. The white silk that attacked the black feathered crow, including the white silk that was wrapped around Ji Guan's neck, all came from Xiaohun. The little maid looked at Ji Guan with a cold look and said teasingly, "Guess who I am?" Ji Guan's neck was squeezed and he couldn't speak at all. Besides, he really didn't know who was pretending to be Xiaohun in front of him. What do you think? I said that no one can see through my master's move. Looking at Qin Yang who was walking with a knife, Xiaohun smiled slightly. The next moment, his figure suddenly changed and he turned into Song Lingzi, who was pale and wearing a grey and white Taoist robe. You. Ji Guan looked at Song Lingzi. He felt that the white silk wrapped around his neck seemed to be loose, and he said in surprise, "Haha, I'm Song Lingzi from the Zuanling department of the Patrol Sky Division." Song Lingzi introduced himself. Ji Guan looked at Qin Yang with sudden enlightenment, shook his head and said, "So, all this is your conspiracy. You are fishing for our fish." Everything was designed by Qin Yang. What the hell is the transfer out of Shan County? It was all Qin Yang's trick. Do you understand now? Qin Yang grinned and suddenly swung the Lingyu knife in his hand. Swoosh. The Lingyu knife turned into a cold light. Qian, who was about to turn around and shake his head, felt a pain in his chest. He lowered his head and saw a knife tip piercing through his chest. Plop, his body fell directly to the ground. Jiguan also saw Qian's death and felt a sense of grief for the death of the rabbit. He knew that it would be his turn soon. Qin Yang, all of us underestimated you. Jiguan smiled miserably with blood in his mouth. That's not the case. I'm too strong, the kind of strength you can't predict. Qin Yang said with a smile. It seems so. Jiguan nodded, and he looked at Qin Yang seriously. The Blackfish Building will not let you go. We will meet in the underworld eventually. Qin Yang smiled slightly. What is the Blackfish Building? Give me some time. I will send your building owner down to see you. Don't worry and go. Jiguan was stunned for a moment. This tone was too arrogant. But when it came to Qin Yang, he suddenly felt that it didn't seem so impossible. Ha ha ha, then I'll wait. I'll wait downstairs and see who will meet me first. Jiguan laughed loudly. Qin Yang nodded and cut off Jiguan's head with a knife. TSK. Why don't you mess with anyone else? Why mess with Qin Yang, this pervert? Song Lingzi looked at Jiguan's body, sighed and shook his head. Thank you this time. Qin Yang clasped his fists. After breaking through to the true key realm, he thought about how to retaliate against the Blackfish Building. He knew that the Blackfish Building's target had always been Xiao Huan, not himself. Once Xiao Huan appeared with him, the Blackfish Building would not be able to sit still. But he was unwilling to let Xiao Huan take such a big risk. After all, Xiao Huan is just an ordinary girl, without any strength, and it is easy to fall into danger. In order to solve this problem, Qin Yang could only ask Song Lingzi to think of a solution for him. As a result, this guy said that he could cast an illusion, pretend to be Xiao Huan, and was willing to help Qin Yang. Although Qin Yang knew that Song Lingzi was so straightforward and a little abnormal, he could only owe this favor. You are being polite. I'm Song Lingzi, and I hate these things the most. Song Lingzi said righteously. Then, he laughed and said, Qin Yang, there is really something you can help with. What is it? Qin Yang said softly. He had long guessed that Song Lingzi agreed to him so readily, and there must be a plan. I can't tell you for the time being. I'm not sure if it can be done. I'll tell you when the time comes. Song Lingzi just wanted Qin Yang to be prepared. Then tell me when you are sure. Qin Yang nodded. Okay, then I'll go back to sleep. It's the middle of the night. I'm sleepy. Song Lingzi yawned and returned to the direction of the Sky Patrol. Master, it turns out that this is your plan again. Qian He came over and smiled bitterly. He really thought that Qin Yang was transferred to another place. But he didn't expect that everything was Qin Yang's plan. Uncle Qian, I can't do anything about it. These guys have been staring at me outside the Sky Patrol, and I can't send you any news. It's better this way. It's more realistic. Qin Yang smiled. Qian He looked at Qin Yang's smile and sighed slightly. He knew that behind this smile, Qin Yang didn't know how much danger and pressure he was carrying. When he was in Linjiang City, Qian He could still help Qin Yang. But now, only Qin Yang has to bear everything. Uncle Qian, hurry up and burn all these bodies. Don't let the people in the Blackfish Building find any clues. Qin Yang chuckled. Hearing Qin Yang's words, Qian He came back to his senses. Next, the two men cleaned up the traces of the battle, burned several bodies and left. After dawn, a figure in a Confucian robe appeared in the official road, as if looking for something. Soon, he saw some charred marks. It seems that Jiguan and others are dead. Could it be that Lu Shengaiu secretly took action? The Confucian robe figure frowned slightly. When Jiguan took action tonight, he had sent him a message. The reason was that Jiguan's action was absolutely foolproof. But the result was that Jiguan was burned to ashes. You know, in addition to Jiguan, there was also a human soul master and two true key warriors this time. It is hard to imagine that this Linoop did not take down Qin Yang and the maid. It must be impossible for Qin Yang alone. But the Confucian robe man felt that Lu Shengaiu was the most suspicious. Could it be that the rumor is true? The Confucian robe man frowned slightly, and his figure gradually disappeared. Patrol Sky Division. Qin Yang came back early in the morning. He walked quickly through the many buildings of the demon slaying department, and returned to his courtyard. A pair of eyes looked at Qin Yang from above, somewhat surprised. This kid is quite fierce. The people in the Blackfish building killed him as they said. It seems that I really didn't pick the wrong person. It was early in the morning, the temperature was cold, and the cold wind in the attic was particularly cold. Lu Shengai stood on the attic in a light martial arts uniform, talking to himself. Soon, a guard walked up to the attic and delivered a letter. Lu Shengai opened it and sneered. When will the Blackfish building teach us people in the Sky Patrol to do things? It seems that we have to let them know who has the final say in this Shan city. 3 more days passed like this. Qin Yang knew that so many people in the Blackfish building had died this time, so they were naturally looking for trouble with him. So he simply hid in the Sky Patrol and didn't go out. In addition to practicing the North Sea True Water Classic every day, he was studying the Dragon Elephant Fist. This boxing method is extremely strong and masculine, and it emphasizes crushing everything with infinite divine power. A dragon and an elephant are the most powerful people in the world. The combination of the two is the strongest power in the world. I wrote this overpass tonight, so I hope it's not too much to ask for some recommendations. I also wish all my readers a happy new year and all the best. Chapter 98 Back Mountain. The Sky Patrol Training Hall. This is a place specially used for training by the Sky Patrol. The Dragon Elephant Fist is very powerful, so it is not suitable to practice in the yard, so Qin Yang can only go here. This hall is very spacious, with 9 large stone platforms for the Sky Patrol's people to practice and exchange. After Qin Yang walked in, he saw people flashing on the stone platforms, and there were people fighting and exchanging, and there were many people watching and discussing below. Qin Yang was not interested in paying attention to these. After walking past the stone platform, there was an open space for martial arts practice, with many weapons and equipment for tempering the body. Qin Yang randomly found a remote corner with no one around, and his feet were slightly outward. His knees sank, and he put on a powerful fist frame. This is the starting posture of the Dragon Elephant Fist, the Dragon Elephant Landing. Qin Yang's eyes were very calm, even a little scary, like a pool of stagnant water. This is a manifestation of entering deep concentration. In this state, his comprehension and thinking ability will be greatly improved. Qin Yang imagined that he had turned into a divine beast with a dragon head and an elephant body, and every move he made had a terrifying power that could break the sky and split the earth. Just by visualizing it, without even making any movements, the blood in his body began to boil violently. Beaming black water true art, like turtle snake art, is a deep and restrained practice, and the blood will naturally lie dormant, like a calm deep sea. Now it seems that a dragon elephant has appeared in the deep sea, stirring up a storm and raising huge waves. Dragon elephant, 100 million stomps. Qin Yang strode forward suddenly, as if the dragon elephant raised its front hoof and stomped forward fiercely. Bang, a roar. The entire martial arts training ground seemed to shake. The loud noise was so terrifying that it attracted the attention of everyone in the training ground. Who is this? He looks a little unfamiliar. Someone frowned. It seems to be someone from the demon slaying department. A guard recognized Qin Yang. The demon slaying department. Everyone looked at the muscular and tall figure with curiosity. Among the 5 divisions of the patrol division, the demon slaying division has a smaller number of members, but it is the strongest in combat. After all, the missions they carry out have the greatest risks. Qin Yang ignored these looks and focused on the Dragon Elephant Fist. After he crushed a hole with his foot, he punched forward with his right fist. Dragon Elephant, millions of destroyed mountains. This punch was blasted into the air, and the visible strong wind was blasted out by his punch. This is a simulation of the terrifying scene of a dragon elephant destroying millions of mountains. It can gather the whole body's strength in the palm of the hand, and then hit it hard. Then, Qin Yang's left hand formed a knife-like hand, and he punched from high to low, like an elephant swinging his arm. Bang! The air suddenly exploded. Dragon elephant, infinite heavy whip. It was as if the calm water surface was smashed open by a thick and fat elephant trunk, and the airwaves were smashed out. Qin Yang performed the Dragon Elephant Fist one move at a time. The moves of the dragon elephant fist were not as complicated as he imagined, with large openings and closings, and the moves were relatively simple. This boxing technique focuses on the physique and spirit. Only those with strong physique and blood can bring out the power of the boxing technique. If the blood is just at an ordinary level, the power displayed is not even as good as a second-rate boxing technique. The spirit is the dragon elephant spirit, which is fierce and unyielding, destroying everything. With this charm, the boxing technique will be more powerful. This boxing technique seems to be tailor-made for Qin Yang. Whether it is blood or spirit, he meets the requirements, so it is easy to practice. The first time he practiced, he performed the dragon elephant fist completely. But even if he was in a corner, the fist wind he hit was like a gust of wind in the dojo. Some people who were closer to Qin Yang moved away. The fist wind was too fierce, as if it was going to tear them apart. What a terrifying boxing technique. This evil killing department is really scary. There are all kinds of monsters. And look at his appearance, he is probably less than 25 years old. The people in the dojo looked at this scene and whispered, "Those who can come into the Sky Patrol division are naturally not ordinary people." Being able to make such a big noise, this tall young man must be a true key warrior. Bang! As Qin Yang closed his fist, he exhaled a faint blue-black airflow. When he recovered from his meditation state, he saw so many people looking at him and frowned slightly. The noise is bigger than I imagined. It seems that I can't come here to practice in the future. After Qin Yang calmed down his ki and blood, he walked out of the dojo. Everyone watched him leave, and after a while, the scene returned to normal. It was just that Qin Yang's reputation spread in the Sky Patrol for the first time after this incident. Qin Yang walked in the Sky Patrol while looking at his panel. Host, Qin Yang Beaming Blackwater True Skill, Level 1, 58/500, Dragon Elephant Fist, Entry, 1/800, Turtle Snake Art, Perfection, Extreme Cold, Primordial Key Cover, Perfection, Primordial Key, Thunder Palm. Great accomplishment, 665/1500, it takes 800 proficiency to get started. This Dragon Elephant Fist is indeed a first-class boxing technique. Qin Yang smacked his lips slightly. As the level of martial arts continues to increase, the required proficiency naturally becomes higher. Before, the entry level of Luohan Fist only required 100 proficiency. Now the Dragon Elephant Fist has become 800. Of course, the two are completely different concepts of boxing. Qin Yang thought about it and headed towards the back mountain of the patrol department. The patrol department is located in the mountains. There seems to be a lot of open space in the back mountain. He plans to open up a place for cultivation there. In this way, he doesn't have to be watched like a monkey. The back mountain is a forest, and Qin Yang found a dense forest that is not far away. He didn't even use the Lingayu sword to chop down the trees. He just held them with both hands and easily uprooted a towering tree. I'm afraid that Lutiji is not as good as me in uprooting trees. When Qin Yang was pulling up trees, he suddenly remembered such a person in his previous life. Boom boom, Qin Yang uprooted the trees one by one and soon cleared a piece of open space. I'll ask the people from the Ministry of Internal Affairs to come and have them erect a finance stake here so that it will be more convenient to practice boxing. Qin Yang was very satisfied with this piece of open space and even built a small wooden house with the woods. After everything was done, he started to practice the Dragon Elephant Fist again. This time, no matter how big the motive was, no one knew it. Qin Yang practiced until sunset, and then he returned to the Sky Patrol division. In the days that followed, Qin Yang practiced the Dragon Elephant Fist in the woods during the day. As the practice of the Dragon Elephant Fist deepened, his muscles became stronger, his body size increased a lot, and his every move was full of mighty charm. At night, he practiced the Beaming Blackwater True Ki. The deep and cold Blackwater True Ki was like the heavy pressure of the deep sea, flowing endlessly in the body, constantly tempering the internal organs and bones. He practiced during the day and tempered at night. Qin Yang felt that his body was undergoing an amazing transformation. This is the power of a first-class technique. It can fully squeeze the potential of the human body to the extreme. Chapter 99, Grudges. 5 days later, Qin Yang's practice was interrupted. He was called to the Demon Suppression Hall by Han Kai and Ayu. But when he arrived at the demon suppression hall, he found that many demon suppressors had gathered there. Kishan, what happened? Qin Yang walked to Wang Kishan and asked. I didn't know I was called here so early in the morning. I was thinking about sleeping in. Wang Kishan yawned. By the way, where have you been hiding recently? I couldn't find you in your courtyard. Xiaohan just said that you went to practice. But I couldn't find you in the training dojo of the Patrol Sky Division. Wang Kishan asked again. Practice in the back mountain. It's quieter there. Qin Yang said casually. He would get bored if he practiced alone for too long, and it would be fun to abuse Wang Kishan occasionally. Okay, I'll go there when I have time. Wang Kishan nodded. Qin Yang took a look and found that the number of people in the demon suppressor department was about the same as when it was first established, and many of them were unfamiliar faces. Although the Patrol Sky Division was recruiting people all the time, the mortality rate of the demon suppressor department was also very high, and it was already very good that the number of people could be maintained. He originally wanted to find Zhang Zhao to check things out, but after looking around, he didn't see Zhang Zhao's people. They should be on a mission to kill evil. Qin Yang guessed in his heart. The demon suppressing hall was quite quiet, and most of the demon suppressing people remained calm and waited quietly. After a while, Han Qianyu finally appeared. She still looked frosty and simply tied her hair into a ponytail. I called everyone here today because there is a mission to be completed. According to the situation of the patrol department, there is a mysterious force entrenched in the city of Shan County. This mysterious force is called the Blackfish Tower, and it may have unclear connections with some evil cults. Chief Lu has issued an order to eliminate all the bases of the Blackfish Tower in Shan City tonight. Han Qianyu said lightly. Blackfish Tower! Exclamation mark. Most of the demon suppressing people felt very unfamiliar when they heard these three words. Qin Yang stood at the back and was slightly stunned when he heard these three words. This time. It's faster than I thought. Qin Yang murmured in his heart. He seemed to have expected that the patrol department would turn against the Blackfish Tower. Han Qianyu continued to speak. This mission will reward contribution points based on the difficulty of eliminating the stronghold. Behind her, there was a guard holding a dozen mission files in his hands. Han Qianyu distributed them one by one. As soon as midnight arrives tonight, we will start the action. Keep an eye on the stronghold marked on the file, don't miss it, and bring back the head to complete the mission. Go back and prepare. Han Qianyu acted vigorously. When many evil killers heard that there were contribution points to be gained, their expressions changed slightly, and they put away the files, and turned around and left. In their eyes, this mission was much easier than the evil killing mission. At least they didn't have to face those gloomy and strange evil spirits. Qin Yang didn't leave, because Han Qianyu didn't distribute the files to him. Wang Kishan noticed this scene, but he didn't say anything, and left with everyone. Qin Yang, follow the rules of the patrol department. After the Iron Plate Evil Slayer reaches 1000 contribution points, he can get the task of being promoted to Bronze Plate Evil Slayer. Tonight's task of eradicating the Blackfish Building's stronghold is also your task, to be promoted to Bronze Plate Evil Slayer. Han Qianyu's face was solemn. I didn't expect to get a promotion and a raise so soon. Qin Yang smiled. Your task this time is very simple. Bring someone back. Han Qianyu whispered a name beside Qin Yang. Just right. This time, let's settle the new and old grudges at the same time. Qin Yang laughed and strode out of the Evil Slayer Hall. It was approaching midnight. The government office was brightly lit. Zhang Han, who was on duty today, was waiting for his colleagues to take over in the government office. The time for handing over the government office is usually midnight. It should be here in another cup of tea. It seems that there is no news from the Blackfish Building. I wonder what will happen to the Evil Slayer. Zhang Han sat in a room next to the court, but his mind was thinking about the previous missing case. In order to calm the public anger, the Blackfish Building had no choice but to push the Shensha gang out. The Blackfish Building suffered such a big loss, so there must be some action. These days, Zhang Han has been paying attention to information in this regard. Because that night at the dock, the evil killing man made him a little scared. Especially those deep and cold eyes. Thinking about it now, Zhang Han feels uneasy. But many days have passed, and there is still no news. Zhang Han's information channels can't find out about the patrol department. Forget it. After Wang Tong comes to take over, I will go to the Blackfish Building's base to inquire. Zhang Han said to himself. He was uneasy until the evil killing man died. After a cup of tea, the head of the police who came to take over completed the handover with Zhang Han. Zhang Han walked alone on the dark street. He did not go in the direction of home, but in another direction. It's midnight. A gong sounded crisply. Zhang Han watched a night watchman knocking on the gong and happened to pass by the street. He didn't care, just turned into a dark alley. Suddenly, Zhang Han was stunned. A figure folded his arms, leaned against a wall, and turned his head to look at him. The face was vague in the dark, but Zhang Han felt a sense of shock. However, as an old constable, he was calm and suppressed the fear in his heart. Qin Yang, why are you here? Zhang Han put his hand on the handle of the knife at his waist. Hey, isn't this Constable Zhang? What a coincidence. Qin Yang greeted with a smile. I don't think it's a coincidence. Shan City is so big, why did we meet? Zhang Han narrowed his eyes. It means that we are destined to meet. A great fate. Qin Yang stood up and blocked in front of Zhang Han. His huge and strong body made the whole alley seem cramped and narrow. Qin Yang, I'm the head of the government office. I hold an official position. You're just a killer, but you dare to rob and kill me on the way. You're really brave. Zhang Han sneered. Are these useful? I dare to show up here. Nothing you say will work. Last time at the dock, weren't you very impressive? Why are you shrinking now? Qin Yang narrowed his eyes. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Zhang Han knew that tonight would not end well when he heard Qin Yang's tone. The other party was coming for him. Clang, he pulled out the long sword from his waist, urged his true energy, and stared at Qin Yang with a covetous look. But Qin Yang didn't make any move, just simply clasped his hands and looked at Zhang Han with a smile, as if he was looking at a clown. Go to hell. Zhang Han roared, rushed forward, and the long sword in his hand pulled out a streak of silk, slashing down fiercely. Qin Yang turned his head, quickly turned his legs outward, sank his waist, and hit with his right hand like an elephant swinging his arm. Dragon elephant, infinite heavy whip. Whoosh, a dull and terrible sound of wind blew up. It was as if the surface of the water was split open. Under Zhang Han's incredible gaze, his long sword was fiercely smashed by Qin Yang's palm. A terrifying force hit his chest. Chapter 100 Gao Family. Boom, the wall of the dark alley was smashed by a figure. Broken bricks exploded. Zhang Han lay in the rubble, spitting blood. This was an unconscious action. In fact, Zhang Han had been knocked unconscious by Qin Yang's dragon elephant fist. So weak Qin Yang scratched his head. He didn't expect Zhang Han couldn't even withstand his palm. Too weak. You can't die if you die. I won't be able to report to Han Kai and Iu. Qin Yang muttered and picked up Zhang Han. Zhang Han's identity is special. He is the head of the Yamen police. Han Kai and Iu specifically instructed that he must be alive and brought back to the patrol department for interrogation. If he is killed by his punch, the contribution value is probably not going to be kept, especially now. Qin Yang has already emptied all his wealth in order to buy the beaming black water true art. It's not easy to get the task, but I don't want it to fail like this. Qin Yang lowered his head to check the situation. He found that Zhang Han still had a breath left, and it would not be a problem for a key warrior to survive, so he was relieved. He picked up Zhang Han with one hand and was about to return to the patrol department. Tonight, everyone has their own mission. His mission has been completed, so there is no need to stay any longer. Walking on the dark street, he was stunned by the sound of fierce fighting not far away. Tonight, Wan Qishan and two other evil killers acted together. One of these two evil killers is called Shen He, and the other is called Guan Taining. Wan Qishan is not as withdrawn as Qin Yang. During this time in the patrol department, he has become familiar with the evil killers. Old Shen, Old Guan. According to intelligence, the Gao family is a small family in the city. The head of the family is Gao Song, who is a key gathering warrior. In addition, there are two key gathering priests. I think we can just kill them directly. Wan Qishan hid in a corner and said carelessly. The three of them are all at the key gathering stage. But in terms of martial arts, actual combat, and the quality of weapons, they are much better than ordinary people. We still have to be careful. From the intelligence, The Gao family seems weak, but they have been gathering information for the Blackfish building, similar to an intelligence agency. I think we should sneak in and control Gao Song, the head of the Gao family. Shenhe was more stable than Wang Qishan. I also think it's better to capture Gao Song first. Guantaining said softly. Wang Qishan said helplessly, 2-1, you have the final say. After reaching a consensus, Wang Qishan and the other two slipped to the back alley of the Gao mansion and climbed over the wall. There were guards patrolling in the Gao family, but there were not many people, only 3 people in a team. Wang Qishan made a gesture, and the 3 of them attacked together and controlled these guards. After some inquiries, they also knew which house Gao Song lived in. After knocking the 3 guards unconscious, Wang Qishan and others passed through 2 courtyards and a corridor and finally came to a house. At this time, some conversations were heard. Master Li, you can rest in the mansion these days. When the time is right, the owner of the building will meet you. A man's voice came out. Then I'll leave it to Brother Gao. Another hoarse voice came out. Wang Qishan was shocked. He didn't expect there was another person. Shenhe made a gesture to rush in. There were only 2 people inside, and the 3 of them had the advantage in numbers. Wang Qishan nodded. Since they had sneaked in here, they naturally couldn't return empty-handed. Just when the 3 of them made up their minds to attack, someone in the house discovered their movements. Who? Boom. The window exploded fiercely. A figure wearing a dark red robe and a black face mask rushed out. Go. Seeing that the other party was so reckless, Wang Qishan immediately used his anger and strength, stretched out his hand to pull out the spear behind him, and thrust forward. Whoosh! The spear was like a dragon, and the air was whistling. The dark red figure was in the air, and it swung its claws and tore out. Swish! 5 terrifying blood marks seemed to appear in the void. The blood claws hit Wang Qishan's spear fiercely, and amazing sparks burst out. Wang Qishan felt a huge force coming at him, and his spear was bent by a claw and flew backwards. Bang! He landed more than 10 meters away, his face strangely blood red. Zio. This is a true key warrior. Wang Qishan roared. Shenhe and Guantaining's faces changed drastically. Lao Guan, take Wang Qishan away. I'll stop this guy. Shenhe drew out his long sword and stabbed it quickly. His swordsmanship was like a fish swimming in the water, erratic and unpredictable. Swish! The long sword suddenly shook, the speed soared, and stabbed the mysterious man's eyes fiercely. Bang! The mysterious man's head flashed, and he dodged the swimming fish sword directly. At the same time, he waved a pair of terrifying blood claws, and tore off a large piece of flesh and blood from Shenhe. In just 1 or 2 short rounds, the entire Gao family mansion was alarmed. Gao Song also rushed out of the house, and when he saw Wang Qishan and the other 2, his expression changed drastically, and he shouted, "There are thieves." He naturally saw that Wang Qishan and the other 2 could not be thieves. But no matter what, let's first determine their identities. At this time, the guards of the Gao family and 2 priests also rushed over. Guantaining screamed, and was also injured by the mysterious man's claws, flying more than 10 meters away. Chop them up. Gao Song gritted his teeth. He obviously didn't intend to let Wang Qishan and the others get out alive. Wang Qishan stood up with bloodshot teeth and growled, "Kill them." The 2 sides fought instantly. But with that mysterious man, how could Wang Qishan and the other 2 be opponents? First, Shenhe's head was smashed by the opponent's claws. Then it was Guantaining. He didn't resist 2 moves, and a bloody hole was directly dug out of his chest. In the end, only Wang Qishan was left. He was also struggling to hold on in the face of the siege of 2 Gao family priests and a group of guards. Seeing his colleagues being slaughtered by the mysterious man, Wang Qishan felt bitter and desperate. He knew that he probably couldn't escape. "Dad, I can't be filial to you." Wang Qishan finally thought of his father who was far away at the Overlord gun gate. A gust of wind whistled in. Wang Qishan did not give up the resistance. He roared wildly and swept out with his spear, knocking out one figure after another. But when it hit the mysterious man, bang, Wang Qishan only felt a recoil force coming, and the whole person flew out. The mysterious man flashed and directly caught up with Wang Qishan and stabbed his head fiercely with his blood claws. Boom! The wall exploded fiercely. A figure holding a long knife came in like a floating light and hit the mysterious man fiercely. Bang! The mysterious man didn't react and was knocked out by Qin Yang. Kill him for me. Gao Song saw the mysterious man being knocked away and hurriedly asked people to besiege Qin Yang. Qin Yang swung the Lingao knife fiercely. For a while, the courtyard was filled with solemn knife lights, overlapping, strangling a group of guards, and setting off a bloody storm. Even the Taki gathering warriors were cut by Qin Yang's knife. The knife light was too cold. Gao Song felt cold all over. He was also a key gathering warrior. But now, facing Qin Yang, he didn't have the courage to attack. He was afraid of being chopped off the neck. Swish, the mysterious man suddenly appeared behind Qin Yang, and his claws stabbed out strangely. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.